Pretty tired today, Owen.
Hmm?
You sound very tired today, mate.
Yeah, well, I have been since yesterday.
Dun dun dun.
You doing another show,
What?
brother?
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
No, this is
man.
a good show.
I thought I was done, man. I thought I'd come in. That's it.
No, one more. I planned on doing 3.
Well, that's
Outstanding.
awesome.
Wife's
Wait.
out with the kid. Mother-in-law's house to myself.
Nathan, really good job. Except something's up with your microphone. The redneck, I forgot his name. Somebody called him a redneck.
Unorthodox.
Yeah, unorthodox. His mic was over completely.
Yeah, the only way I can get around that is turning up me in the hangout. The problem with doing that is it gives the impression to the guests, and I only know this thanks to Tim Osman. He recorded one of the in-between sections, and I obviously got to hear how he hears it, which is impossible for me to do. I can't monitor it as I'm doing it. I mean, I could, it doesn't matter. I can't do it. It's not within my capabilities to monitor it that way. So hearing it back, it sounds like I'm shouting the whole time when I turn myself up in the Hangout volume. And the only reason I would do that is for that reason, to stop someone like an Orthodox having a more overpowering mic. But that's just the way it is. So to avoid people accusing me of shouting when I'm actually not, I've just left my volume at a lower volume. But I may go back to the old way and have people accusing me of shouting again.
I mean, I would have just made a half step when I was very close to just muting them and just interjecting one by one because it was a mess, like a total mess.
Yeah, well, he's doing that intentionally. So he doesn't want the end point to get made. So that's why he's rumpusing.
Mm.
I mean, I just shut him up when that happens. I realise it's happening. You know, as soon as he starts rumpusing, I'm like, oh, right, okay, this is where people accuse me of being mute happy. It's like, well, I've got 2 choices. Let him rumpus the hangout where no point gets made. In other words, he wins. His point doesn't get devastated by me pointing out its criticisms. Or shut him up, make sure the audience gets to hear the end point, why his logic isn't sound. Why saying, well, if you have a gas pressure gradient, it logically would follow that you've got a bloody vacuum next to it. That's what he's trying to get across to the audience. And I'm saying, no, that's not a logical deduction. That's totally illogical. But when I get to say that, that's when he's like, rumpus, 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 rumpus. So I know he's doing it. And that's when I'll just go, shut up. This is my playground. I built it the way I want it. And if people want to criticise me for shutting up people when they rumpus a hangout, I don't care. It's like Conspiracy Cats is currently doing exactly that. Saying, oh no, you'll mute me. Yeah, I will. Yeah, I will absolutely shut you up if you try and rumpus my point at the end when you use your red herring fallacy about a gas pressure gradient, exactly like an Orthodox has done, which is what he'll do. And when he does it, I'll go, no, that's not correct. And if he carries on talking, I'll go, shut up. And I'll carry on making my point to the audience, which destroys his. Now, people don't want that. What they want is me to go on non sequitur so they can have all of the rest of the supposed moderators run distractions when a point like that comes up. Ask a whole load of new questions, distract from the point. Sod that. That's why I've got this playground. That's why I've sat here for the last 12 months. So I can be dictatorial. If you don't like it, that's fine. My options will always be the same for people like Red Rhetorics and Conspiracy Cats. You've got 2 choices. If you've got such a big hard-on to debate me, that's why I've got the panel like it is. Just say in the chat, I'd like to come in and debate you, and I guarantee someone will drop. They always do. So here's your open platform. If you want to debate me specifically, I've got an open door to do so. And if they go, well, no, I want you to go somewhere else. No, I've got that. That's why I built a show. Not so I can bugger off to someone else's platform. I'm doing it so I've got a show. If you want to come and debate me, great. Good for you. Join. Everyone's welcome. Anyway, that's my rant.
That's a very, going on the non sequitur is just like
Non sequitur.
It's a carnival.
I've been on the non sequitur show.
It's literally a carnival.
How did you get on, Apollo?
I talked about my my NASA tapes and NASA photos. It was like 2 hours of me talking about my projects.
Mm-hmm. Well, you were in line with their platform, that's for sure.
So it wasn't really a debate then, or like they didn't gang up on you and.
No, it was just a presentation, like they do sometimes. They have debates, but they also have presentations. And of course, I answer questions from the audience and from the host.
Debates, is that what you call it? Debates on that clown show?
I would, yeah.
No, that's not debate. There's no, on their clown platform, there's no possibility to screen share. So each side starts off with a whole bunch of ipsy-dixit fallacies, right? And then what happens,
Yeah, there is,
you got Steve
because
McClown, the pretender clown, and Kyle, he's a crayon munching retard, right? And anybody else,
No.
all they do is ad hom the guests, right? They pick one side and ad hom the guests to death. It's a clown show brought to you by Steve McClown, right? It's a
Steve
joke.
McRae.
You mean General
Steve
Custard?
McQuaker.
Didn't he get Didn't General Custard end up getting scalped?
No.
Yeah, I scalped that crayon muncher years ago. He's a damn yellow spine coward. And I got the emails to prove it. So,
I didn't know the guy's name.
non-sec-
Did you see the
Hold on, let's hear more. What do you mean,
Yeah,
John?
yeah, the
They
non
do
sequitur
kindergarten level personal attacks, like instant peer pressure, and then
Right.
just swiping you away like a turd.
So
What?
Apollo, you think that's a debate?
No.
So some of them are pretty terrible, but some of them are decent, I think.
Really? Which ones are decent?
2 minutes
Make
to
sure
go
you,
live again.
I want
2 minutes.
to list. Okay. I want a list of those decent ones.
I think the debate about how do you call it, dinosaurs was okay.
Was that with that
The,
Miriam Schweitzer or whatever she was called?
I do think there was a female on board, but I'm not sure.
You should
But,
check out
the
the Dr.
opposing
Mary
side was-
Schweitzer. I did. I did not a spoof, but I did an evaluation of the Dr. Mary Schweitzer interview on the Non Sequitur show.
I
In
mirrored
fact,
that.
it's on this
I
channel.
mirrored that, John. Did you know that?
What's that?
I mirrored that.
Yeah,
On
that's
Cath-
right. That's what I was
it's on
telling Apollo.
Cathexis' channel, right? That's the one that was on Cathexis.
Yes.
Yeah, I mirrored that. I thought that was excellent.
Yeah. But that
No.
wasn't a debate. They just had her on there for an interview. But I ripped it to shreds, every single point.
I could
You haven't
do
heard too much from Dr. Mary Schweitzer since, have you?
I could do a debate on the non-sequitur show about how the moon landings were faked. I could do that.
Why do you think
I
they
think-
were fake?
We can all do that.
Hold on. Do you think they were fake? Or do you think that
No,
which
but
side-
I could play devil's advocate pretty good, I think.
that's kind of what I'm asking. What position would you take? And forget the devil's advocate bit. Just which position are you saying you would take, for or against moon landings being real?
For a debate on the non-sequitur show.
Just I'm trying to establish what you believe. Do you believe the moon landings are real?
Oh yeah.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, on the 1 year anniversary of Flat Earth Debate, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and there's also a PayPal link in the info box below the video. Most importantly though, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now we are joined by John, otherwise known as Quantum Eraser, The Plain Truth, otherwise known as Travis, Sleeping Warrior, otherwise known as Anthony Riley, Iron Realm Media, otherwise known as Adam, Event Horizon, whose name I don't know, Eric, Chocolate Saiyan, Warren, Arwin, and Apollo. Good to have you all.
I went through two. I went through two Michael.
It's an Orthodox fact.
Uh-oh.
The life and-
Yeah, it's a new,
In
it's a new show
remembrance of
now.
Unorthodox was nice.
You might be in the chat, but that would be a new reference to anybody watching. So, anyway, any signs of curvature, gentlemen?
Of the Earth-based variety?
Yeah, we got Apollo with us
No.
this time. He had a crash last show. So this is the third in a series of shows because it's the 1 year anniversary. But last time, Apollo dodged the bullet, didn't have to do housekeeping. Apparently his computer crashed. Any signs of curvature, Apollo?
No.
Amazing. Such honesty. Any signs of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? Anybody at all?
Definitely not.
Not at all.
Maybe some wobble and tilting. I don't know. No rotation, but a bit of
No,
wobble.
but not the Earth.
That's just your stomach.
Say again? Say again, Apollo.
Whirlpools might
Right,
rotating.
moving on. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
There is no distance to the sun.
Oh,
Ooh.
okay.
Not at all.
No. Any evidence that you can have a gas pressure without a container?
Never.
Hydrogen peroxide.
Sorry, hydrogen peroxide. Tell me more.
That's what it is called, right? I keep forgetting, but that's the stuff I was talking about 2 hours ago, right? Or was it called something else?
Something wrong with your microphone, Apollo. It's gone all roboty. Unless that's my sound desk. I'll reset my desk with it. I think that's your mic going wrong.
Let's test 1, 2, 1, 2.
Yeah, it's all
How-
roboty.
Oh.
It's
Maybe
the-
I can unplug it and plug it back in.
No worries.
Have some robot,
Well, while you do that, it means you can avoid the next question. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No.
No.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah?
There is an apparent aberration of elements that would suggest that there is a unified force effect present, but the apparent correlations have no definitive actual correlations, and thus
What-
one must
what the
conclude
hell?
that gravity is nothing but an aberration of nature, a misinterpretation of phenomena.
What's gravity?
So what's
Why don't
gravity?
we? Well, yeah, we're going to replace the term gravity with invisible three-toed gnomes from here on out.
what are
you
invisible
wanna call-
three-toed gnomes? Nobody knows.
I
With a
hope
match
you
proof
agree
it.
that I basically very technically conceded right there and explained why.
Yeah, come on. Let's not poop on him for actually conceding, guys. Give him
Yeah,
a
I
break.
agree. In the interval of, I think it was the first and second show, unbelievably, Arwin gave a full concession that, yeah, it's just a deduction and there's no need for it. So check out Nathan Oakley channel, my second channel, if you want to hear that. I record the in-betweeny bits when it's not live. And Arwin gave a full concession. It was unbelievable. I couldn't even believe my own ears. So there we go.
Hold on.
How is this channel called?
Hold on.
Hold on, I didn't concede. Gravity is real. Go
No,
on,
no,
Arwin.
no. I definitely did concede, but I did not say that it's not needed. It's just not something we can really build on because it is, as I just explained, it's an aberration. There is no real proof that it is a consistent thing, a unified.
What is? What's it?
the elements, the aberration, the alignment, that when force applied, the alignment change. It's all aberrations, basically side effects that would point at some kind of unified force effect, but they're all aberrations technically, and they're it's make appear. It's just
Why,
a part of
why are
nature
you
that
calling
just
them
suggests it.
aberrations? Why can't it be just a universal natural law or God, whatever you want to call it? You're religious.
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
You
It
keep
doesn't explain
aberration.
anything though, but I'm just being very technical
I mean,
here.
I'm not a big fan of religion. I'm not an atheist, but I don't get hung up on the idea of quote unquote God.
Nathan, how is the other channel you just mentioned called?
It's just called Nathan Oakley, with a
Oh,
space in between.
okay. Can you? Oh, I got it.
Yeah, it just has the same shows, but I do them a day later, and as I say, they're unedited in the respect that when I have a little break, I just leave it recording, and then after the fact, I'll edit it into, in this case, 3 separate videos.
But to continue, I never said that gravity, to assume that it is like a unified concept, is useless, because it's very useful. It makes things working with it very easy. It's a conceptual tool that is useful for pragmatic reasons, basically. But yeah, to actually define reality itself, no, it's not. And yeah, I have no further reason basically to explore. Although I will pay attention, but yeah, I guess I have to consider gravity just being a hobby. Maybe.
Gravity, you mean
The
invisible
knowledge of it.
three-toed gnomes?
Right.
Yep,
Right.
that's what we're calling them from now on.
Okay,
I
well,
put it in.
I'm
It's
happy to-
copyrighted.
I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take that all day long, Arwin. So, any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No.
Anybody? Anybody at all?
Molten
Just
core,
real-
molten layer, an absolute surface. No.
No. Well, we'll get the last one in then. We didn't get this one in on the last show. Any evidence of the presupposition itself? The R value, Earth radius? Anybody?
Mm,
Nah.
Can't you drive around Earth and calculate the R value with, a map? It's just the radius, right? So that
Can
should
you-
be possible to just calculate with some maps and measurements.
So when you say drive around the Earth, so immediately just by your terminology, if it was the equator, you'd be on the side of it, wouldn't you?
Oh, sorry, I wasn't listening.
Let's say you're looking at a picture of the blue marble, right? And you're talking
Yes.
about measuring the circumference by driving around the edge of it, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Theoretically, obviously, we're not going to be driving on oceans, but just for the example. So you are automatically conceptualizing that you are driving around the edge of a sphere, correct?
Yes.
Right. Well, that's begging the question. So in your measurement, your assumption is automatically that you are on the outside edge of a ball.
I would say so, yes.
Right, but that's called begging the question. So before you measure anything, conceptually, you're already on a ball. You don't need to do any measuring. You're there already, mate.
So you can try and do the same thing with a conceptualized flat Earth and see what happens.
Yeah, your odometer in your car on both models is going to be the same. Oh, good. I started at A, went around, got back to A. Navigate. So it's going to be the same thing on the odometer. What does that prove?
I don't. But the bit I don't understand is what do you mean on a conceptually flat Earth? Why do I
Well,
have to
you
conceptualize it as
could-
being flat?
You could apply the measurements you've taken on a globe Earth, on a flat Earth, and present the results, and then we can debate those which results are more accurate.
But accurate to what? My point is that let's tie it down a little bit. So we're going to follow the path of the sun, are we not? That denotes the equator, correct?
Yeah.
Well, as you stand on that point, and I turn to my left 90 degrees, and I turn to my right 90 degrees, what I observe in both directions is a flat expanse. So why would it be the case that, for some reason, I must assume that I'm on the outside edge of that blue marble we conceptualized looking at a moment ago? Why would I suddenly assume that rather than just being on top of a flat plane, why would I suddenly assume that I'm on the outside edge of a ball because the sun is directly over my head? Where is that in any way logically concludable, if that's a word?
If you want to use the measurements for on a round Earth, yes. If you want to process the measurements on a round Earth, you need to think you are on a round Earth. And if you want to use your measurements for a flat Earth, you need to use a model that represents a flat plane.
Model? What do you mean model? What kind of model?
But if you're already standing on the flat plane, why don't you just measure that
What kind of
instead of coming
model?
up with a model?
Model's a reification fallacy. So
No,
if you're appealing to a model, your argument is therefore void.
Okay, so how else are you?
I don't know. It's
so
you're
just-
providing the evidence. I don't know. Why are you asking me, counselor?
So
Present
how about
your
you
case.
leave out the model and just say flat Earth? Would that suit your? Would that be better?
Flat
instead of-
Earth. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I got that
Okay.
part.
The flatness is a geometrical aspect of our surrounding.
What is his evidence? What is your evidence, counselor, that you live on a spinning ball?
I don't know. I'm kind of tired and stressed out. So
Fair
Okay.
enough. Well, maybe a different question. You mentioned the equator, or I did. I brought up the equator. Do you know how they come to the conclusion? You know how they derive that equator?
I don't really. I've never been good with shapes on geometrical shapes, so I'm not good with things like the equinox and equator and coordinates.
Well,
So-
you do. You know, well, you've answered it. That in saying that, that means you understand that it's about the sun's path. So just by saying those things, you do understand it. I can tell. You
Oh,
might
yeah,
not be
yeah, the sun
well versed,
path-
but you
that
understand
the
that it's the path of
sun-
the sun that derives that. Correct?
Yes.
Right. So why would you do that? Why would you relate the sun's path to the shape of the ground beneath your feet? Where's that step?
What do you mean?
Excellent question.
Do you want me to repeat it?
No, I think I understand your words, but I don't really understand your question.
Well, if the equator is derived from the path of the sun, where the sun goes gives you that concept of that circle, which you have presupposed, if looking at a blue marble picture, is you stuck on the side of that blue marble. Conceptually, you're on the side of it. I know we're removing ourselves from the ball earth, looking back at the ball earth, measuring the equator, and you're stuck to the side of that ball. Well, my question is, if the derived value comes from the sun moving, at what stage do you take the step from I'm observing a sun moving to this denotes the shape of the ground beneath my feet?
Well, maybe you can try and map the measurements of the sun you've taken with a telescope, for example, where the light goes, and
You might as well be plotting aeroplane coordinates, though, hadn't you? It's just something that's going above your head.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Let him
So
finish.
if you want, you can try and map the movement to a flat Earth, and you can map it to a round Earth, and that's it. I mean, why?
Sure.
Well-
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt, but why? Why would you forget the flat Earth pictures for a moment? Why would you take the logical step to say we can map this on a sphere because the sun does X? That would mean that I'm now going to map it on a sphere. Where's the step in between to make you come to that conclusion that I can map this on a sphere? Why would you do that?
Because if I wanted to take a look at a round Earth and see if something works or not, I would map my measurements
No,
on
I
a
understand
round
that.
Earth.
No, you're missing the in-between bit. I understand that that's what you can do if you're going to assess around Earth, but where does the step come between? So you stand with me. We're shoulder to shoulder. We're at the equator, the so-called equator, and the sun's going straight over us. And we go, right, okay, let's figure out where the sun goes and what it does. And we have a damn good look at the sun. At what stage do you say, now that means the Earth is? How do you do that? Where's the step in between looking at the sun and saying, that means the Earth is? Where's that step?
Exactly.
I didn't. Maybe because of the shadows that the sun creates. Wasn't there like this observation made with sticks? I know you hate it, but
Well, it
that-
could be sticks or it could be wells. We're not sure.
well, both are shadows, so
Right.
I don't think they would work on a flat Earth, but they would on a round Earth.
Well, no,
Shadows
but
don't
you're still
work.
not. That doesn't answer my question. In fact, it completely ignores it. So, why at any stage of looking at the sun would you decide that that has any bearing whatsoever about the ground you're standing on? What makes you make any connection between the two?
If there are certain pets, I watched a video on this, especially with the equinox, that the path of the sun matches if it were on a round Earth, but the observation wouldn't match with the equinox if it were how do you call it, spinning above the flat Earth.
Yeah, I know there's strawman arguments about what people represent on a spherical globe Earth projection known as the azimuthal equidistant projection, which is held up as a strawman flat Earth map, even though it's a global projection. I realise that people can debunk that strawman, but that isn't the heart of my question. The heart of my question isn't whether or not you can, after the fact, once you have decided that the sun's path has a bearing on the ground beneath your feet, I'm lacking that connection. So forget what happens after that connection has been drawn. Where is the connection between the sun moving and what you're standing on? So in the same way, someone else said, I think it was Eric, you see a plane go over your head. At what stage would you ever say, there's that plane, an aeroplane flying through the sky. I can study how the aeroplane moves. That means that the Earth I'm standing on is. When would anybody make that connection? And I'm trying to do the same, not with an aeroplane, but with the big ball of light in the sky we call the sun. Where's that connection? Forget whether or not it works once someone's made that conclusion and modelled it. I'm saying, where's the connection between I see the sun moving, the Earth is X?
Because I am assuming the sun is not an optical phenomena, but a more or less physical object that
So you're assuming.
Hold on, please stop interrupting him. Carry
because
on,
I am assuming the sun is a source of light, not just an optical phenomena. Either the Earth is spinning around it, or it is spinning above the flat Earth, and only one of those things can be correct. So
You've missed out the
You're
step
still not
again.
answering the
You're
question.
still missing the step. You're not
But
actually
wait.
addressing where
There's
you
more
go
other
from,
options.
what the sun does, to the earth is spinning underneath me. Where's the in-between bit? How do you get to that conclusion from watching the sun? Where's the in-between step?
Between the observation and asserting a shape it is moving around. Between those two steps you are asking.
No, so let's call it A and C. A is I look at the sun. C is
Okay.
the earth is something. Where's step B that takes you from A to C?
Because I think I know what I want to say, but I'm not sure how I should word it. Because the behavior of the types of observations you can make on a round Earth or a flat Earth will be different. And
You've done that twice now. I understand that once at some stage somebody looks at the sun and decides that if we were observing that sun from a sphere Earth, but how do you get to start making that extrapolation? How do you go from looking at the sun to saying how it might work on a sphere Earth? Where's the in-between bit? You keep just telling me how it works after you've decided it is. And I want to know how you come to the decision that it is, or might be anything, flat or round or bloody banana shaped.
Or cube. I think that's what he's missing. You know, he said there's only two options. No, we could look at the sun, and I guess we could come up and say Earth is a cube, for example.
Yeah.
So it's
yeah.
I mean,
Well,
I don't
wait
think you-
1 second. It might
We
be
also
easier.
point at
if-
things in the sky and say I'm a cloud.
It might be easier if we invert the question. So I'm trying to discern the shape of Cassiopeia. Why on earth would I look down at a mud bog to discern that shape? What's that logical step?
What's the Cassiopeia? What's that?
You don't know
So-
Cassiopeia?
Oh.
It's just a constellation. Just it doesn't matter.
Oh.
Celestial
Something in the
body.
sky. How do you derive? You want to figure out what something in the sky is shape-wise. Why would you look at a mud puddle to establish that?
Maybe the mud puddle is reflecting the light. No, you wouldn't. That would be. You wouldn't look at a mud puddle to observe something above you.
So if I'm trying
Exactly.
to
There you
trying
go.
to establish the shape of the mud puddle, why would I look at a plane going overhead?
You would not.
So
Do that.
why stop? So why, if we're trying to establish the ground between beneath our feet, would we look at the light in the sky?
Because from the videos I've seen, there are differences between observations you would make on a flat Earth and a round Earth.
But those are both pseudoscience models. Both. The flat Earth is an azimuthal equidistant projection of a sphere Earth that works from centre out, and the globe Earth is a globe Earth. But we haven't got a logical step between sun goes overhead and ground beneath my feet. It's akin to puddle beneath my feet, therefore I'm going to look at light in the sky. Or I want to figure out what the light in the sky or aeroplane is, so I'm going to look at a mud puddle. But when it comes to the exact same analogy with Earth and the sun, you say, well, because there's already models in existence that give you a either or choice.
Yeah, it's non sequitur. Right.
I think we'll leave it there because I don't want to
Yeah.
drill you non-stop. You've been very, very tolerant of this, actually, Apollo, as always. Excellent. I'll just conclude by saying there is no step. There is no step between looking at the sun and deciding what the shape of the earth beneath your feet is. Somebody somewhere has looked at a light in the sky and the shadows on it and decided that means that the shadows cast from earth therefore are a sphere. And from there on in, you start measuring everything as though you're on a sphere, i.e. automatically assuming it is a sphere and you're on the outside edge of it when you're measuring the equator because the sun moves in a particular way. This isn't logic, this is nonsense, and it forms the heliocentric religion. That is the conclusion, unfortunately, Apollo. Sorry that it was you that was used to make that example, as you're so pleasant. Radius Dominus, Gravitas Spiritus Sanctus, go in peace, in R you trust.
It's like being in a nightclub with disco lights or whatever they're called now. Maybe I'm dating myself. So moving lights, dark room. Okay, disco lights. Therefore, room is what? I don't know. What's the connection?
Connection is there is no connection.
There isn't just. There's just an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy waiting to be put forward. I do love these calm little moments.
Bobbity 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 bob.
It's like resting off your beacon, isn't it?
The globe of the heavens is deceptive in nature on a psychological level because it suggests so many things to us.
You know what's a topic I've been contemplating, and it doesn't seem maybe I'm missing something, but the whole idea of the tectonic plates, and also the idea that the ice age, the end of the ice age, these ice shelves carving out valleys and mountains, and yeah, if you get my drift here.
No.
Tectonic plates.
Yeah, I mean, just tectonic plates, and how our mountains and things and valleys were supposedly carved out by massive sheets of ice drifting, bending and curving around the globe to carve out valleys. It's something's missing there hugely. Like how are mountains formed?
Nobody's having
man.
it. Nobody's having it. I left it long enough.
Everything's gravity.
No,
Why?
that's invisible three-toed gnomes.
Well, I mean, mountains forming and pushing up kind of are defying gravity. No, I don't know.
No. That's invisible three-toed gnomes on vacation. Then it
That's just
allows
pressure.
the mountains to go up. That's how it is. That's my explanation. Disprove it.
Well, I mean, the current model, I mean, is a combination. How we have these mountain ranges is a combination of tectonic plates butting
Did you
up
say
against
model?
each other.
All just
Did
natural
you say
forces.
model?
He did say model.
Excuse me. If you said model, then that's a reification fallacy. Therefore, that argument is void. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to discuss how these things are or were they always there? I don't know.
I don't think these issues can be adjudicated by discussion, right? That's a cause and effect relationship, so you would have to adjudicate it via the scientific method. So, natural phenomena observed, please.
Is Mark Stevens on the show?
Mark Stevens.
Yeah, he knows who I'm talking about. I think.
Who
Mark
knows what you're
Stevens.
talking about?
You.
I don't. I've never heard of Mark Stevens. Thank you.
I know who you're talking about, Eric.
Oh, okay. I knew one that somebody did here.
He's just basically complimenting your appeal to logic.
Your legalese terms.
Oh, so that's a compliment. Thank you.
Of course it is. Well, in a way, I wouldn't compliment Mark Stevens, but.
Okie dokie then.
What the heck was that?
That was me. What of my, sorry. What of my audio real recordings?
Okay.
It sounds like you are the man that Jeremy was talking about when he was talking about somebody that might be constantly spending their time chasing their tail with NASA, getting freedom of information requests put through. Are you that administrator who's chasing your tail, Apollo?
No, I have never made a freedom of acquisition request to NASA. No.
It's all just stuff you've bought on eBay.
Yes, and some things I borrowed from other collectors. That, yeah.
Wait. You consider yourself a collector of NASA memorabilia? That explains a lot. A collector.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I borrowed stuff from other people to digitize it for them.
So you really like NASA? I mean, it's cool stuff, huh?
Yeah, really cool stuff on the technical side, on the photographic record, and yeah, really cool stuff.
Yeah, you're a fanboy. I can relate.
Well, you are but I'm also a fanboy of you, Nathan. So
No. I mean, I used to be a NASA fanboy. I used to be well into it. Not to the extent you were, but maybe one I don't know, 1/5 of the extent that you are. I was into it.
Oh,
I would love the paraphernalia and the logos. And
yeah, it's cool. It's tech, isn't it? It's just cool tech.
I always wanted the science fiction stuff.
Are they wipes?
I guess. If you consider, what does Jaren call the moon lander? A tweaker shelter?
A homeless shelter.
Yeah, homeless tweaker.
That's a good one.
Homeless tweaker shelter.
I'll have you know, a lot of German engineering went into making that be able to spring out of that little box. Amazing technology.
Well, wasn't it Grumman? Was Grumman a German engineering company or American?
I thought it was German. The Americans couldn't get it to work, so they had to go to the Germans to make the spring-loaded mechanism actually make it pop out on the moon.
Just me, or is it just me, or is anybody getting a lot of Boeing commercials on their YouTube channel?
Boeing?
Well, the space movie, the new moon landing movie is pretty much out, I think. So yeah,
Boeing
every
is-
flat Earth commercial break always.
The movie about a movie.
Yeah, a movie about a movie. Exactly. Well put.
That's what it is.
But some of the set pieces and models that they used are pretty stunning in terms of their technical prowess, especially the Moonlander. People did actually work on this stuff. So as much as it's farcical to ever suggest that the Moonlander actually made it to the moon, somebody did actually go through the what's it called, trial and error of getting a tiny little fold-out car to pop out of this tiny little space on the lander.
Holy shit! That would have been Boeing. Boeing made the lunar rover.
Boeing.
No, that was GMC. It was a Jeep.
That's Dutch. Originally.
Yeah, I thought it was GM-based product. It's basically the bottom section is based on a Jeep, isn't it?
Yep.
I don't think so. I think it was completely engineered. I don't think the bottom looks at all like a Jeep.
Well, no. By the time they'd had to fold in all of the axles like a collapsible tent, no, absolutely not. It didn't look anything like what it was originally designed to be. But my point is that this thing did get designed. There was skilled engineers working on problems to get it to work and pop out of this little space. That all really did happen. So to say there's no, technical expertise going into some of these things that are designed, well, that was nonsense, because these things did take some engineers to scratch their heads and figure out problems to figure out solutions to problems. So all that did happen. The only bit that's total bollocks is that they stuck it on a rocket and shipped it off to the moon. That's utter horseshit. Doesn't mean that they didn't go through the blood, sweat and tears to actually engineer some of this stuff. I'm absolutely firmly convinced. Now I have loads of flat earthers. You couldn't get that into the lander. Yeah, you could. And lots of people worked very hard on it and got paid, and they all went home and fed their families as a result of that. So to say that no smart people got involved with the engineering aspects of NASA doesn't mean that it wasn't just stuck in some shed somewhere when they lit the candle and sent up the firework. Doesn't mean it went to the moon. Does mean somebody actually worked on that stuff, though.
I've like the on how do you call it, the Apollo guidance computer is also very interesting. I have been talking with a collector who has some memory modules, core rope memory modules, and he's having them digitized from a Apollo guidance computer. So I think that's pretty interesting. There are also photos of these modules, and you can see how they were designed, and very cool stuff. Back in the 60s they didn't have anything else. So
Sure.
Any chance we can get back to real world now?
Oh, I was just about to elaborate on the story.
I don't mind either way. I don't mind segueing away, or if you've got another point, I don't mind.
I was able to jump in. I don't mean to interrupt. I got a message from Rumpus in the chat. I would like to read it, quote it, if I can. Yes.
Go ahead.
And I quote, it was 11:09 in the morning. The Rumpus says, and I quote, "Science is all about proposing models. You author moron." And I close quotes. Thank you.
So science is about proposing models. Is that the quote? Science is about proposing models.
Yes, and like 25 author and then moron at the end.
I think I have an appropriate picture for that to share.
Have a look.
It's not an otter, but
Science is about proposing models. That's what it is?
That's what Rumpus say. How about that?
Arwen thinks
John liked that. John liked that. Right?
He looks like a squirrel. Rumpus, that is.
yeah, it's not an otter. I should find another one.
Lovely.
So going back to the first show, Jeronism messaged me. He said he tried to rejoin the show, but the panel was full. He was busy doing a bunch of stuff, and he tells me to tell you, happy anniversary. Keep it going.
Thank you very much.
Boom.
Shout out to Jeronism. Loved his I mirrored his demonstration that he did, just raising and lowering his camera, and I positively encourage others to do the same. It's dead easy. It's not science.
Awesome. I would love to talk with Jeronism someday. So if you could send me another chat sometime, so we could chat earlier. That would be cool.
Hey Rumpus, how you doing?
Hello.
Good to have you.
Right, yeah. Oh God, John, you're an idiot. You propose models all the time in science. And who's the Apollo guy who didn't understand how to use Polaris to determine the shape of the Earth and couldn't answer your question?
Hang on, let's
For
do
God's sake, Apollo, get to grips with some of the science.
one thing at a time.
Shout out to legendary crayon munching pretender clown. Refraction fallacy says congratulations to Nathan. A reification fallacy.
Well, I mean, honestly, you couldn't answer the question about the sun and the Polaris. For goodness sake, learn it up until you can dismiss Nathan's idiocy.
There's no need to shout.
Well, it's frustrating to have someone who can't answer simple questions, and when you've got to deal with an idiot like Nathan.
Leave him alone, dude.
Questions, Rumpus. Rumpus, tell us what science is all about.
Explaining reality. That's what it's all about.
Explaining or
oh wow, that's very general.
Well, yes, it is. Science is very general.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's very
No,
specific.
it's not.
Science is all about explaining reality.
No, it's very specific. What you're talking about is the spirit of science, but that's not what the scientific method really is.
Well, science is more than a scientific method.
You're talking about science in a philosophical context, not in a real, empirical context.
Well, we talk about, it depends what you decide what science is. Science is all about understanding reality, every aspect of it.
Right, so understanding reality. Can I have a citation for that, please?
Oh, God, right. Well, it's just a definition. Okay, right, I'm going to find one.
Pretty certain that's sort of what traditional religions have been doing for.
Well, but they fail. They're not based on evidence and reason and logic, so it's irrelevant.
So says you. They haven't claimed differently.
Sorry, hold on.
Yeah, well, they haven't got the evidence to support their positions, where science has. Science is verified.
Are we talking about reason and logic, or scientific evidence? Which one are we talking about?
Science uses reason and evidence. You have to use reason and logic in your presentation of a scientific proposal or hypothesis or theory. They're all based around. You have to integrate the evidence with logic and reason and math.
Integrate again. Very related to inductive reasoning, logic.
If science is all about inductive reasoning.
No, it's not.
That's a religion.
Absolutely, it is.
Thank you for admitting that. Can you please
No,
record
no admission. Look, we don't know, for instance, that tomorrow the sun will rise up, even if we drop an apple 1,000 times and it goes to the ground. We
That's
don't
priceless.
know that on 1,001th occasion it won't. And we draw up general rules that are based on inductive reasoning. Science is all about inductive reasoning.
That is not true.
Absolutely true. You're an idiot if you think otherwise.
Well, I'm only telling you what the definition is, and what you've just said is not matching what the definition says.
Well,
So
you can't comprehend anything you read. I mean, that neutral buoyancy thing you think is the scientific definition of neutral buoyancy isn't.
So
Sorry, hold on.
just the definition of the
Bear with
place.
me, Anthony. Hold on. So you said you were going to get a definition at Rumpus of what
Oh,
science
God, well, I
is.
was busy answering people, so I didn't.
Yeah. So do you want to grab your definition of what science
Well, it's
is?
just a dictionary. I mean, if I show you a dictionary definition and you come up with another
Yes,
one, I
please.
mean, it's just the fight of dictionaries, and it's
That's
a
what a
pointless
debate
argument.
is. That's what a debate is.
Well, yeah, but not really a debate about 5
But
dictionaries.
it's not if you don't go and get a definition, then it just becomes an
I'm
asshole,
going.
doesn't
Okay,
it?
I'll stop and go and get a definition. And bloody
Excellent.
hell.
Good man.
Rumpus, can I ask you? I mean, personally, I lean towards living a life based on deductive reasoning, whereas
You can't. Well, you can't. So hold on. So you hold on. So do you believe the sun is going to turn up tomorrow morning?
Believe. You just used believe.
Do you believe? Do you believe that the sun is going to turn up tomorrow morning?
I don't need to believe. I don't. Why do you throw the belief in there?
Well, that's because everything that you believe to be true is a belief, you idiot.
Yeah, but Rumpus, let's stay with one thing.
Oh, hold on. Let me just sort out this guy. Inductive reasoning is something you use all the time. If you believe the sun is going to come up tomorrow morning, that's an inductive. Hold on. That's inductive
Anthony.
reasoning because it's happened every single time you've done it. You've presumed you've drawn up a general rule from specific examples of things that have happened in the world, and so you're saying, okay, it's going to repeat. That's an inductive. That's using inductive.
Okay, number one,
Only maths. Hold on. Only maths uses deductive reasoning. In science, you have to use inductive reasoning all the time.
Only maths. What? Please, I hope somebody's recording this. This is still recording. This is just.
We're live.
Get on with it. Make your point. Make your point, you idiot.
Oh my God. Do you even know the difference? I've already.
Yes, I do. That's why I'm explaining it to you, you moron.
Moron. So, if I guess
You
deductive
don't know the
reasoning
difference between
for
induction and
morons,
deduction, do you?
inductive is for geniuses.
You don't understand the difference
Okay,
between
right.
induction and deduction.
Let's
No,
end this
clearly I do
sidetrack.
not.
Thank
No,
you.
you don't.
Okay, fine. No problem, Rumpus. We've started off with what science is. Can you see what's on Sleeping Warrior's screen as you didn't
Okay, I think
go and get your definition?
Or on my screen.
I'd just like to know where
What's
it
on
talks
Arwen's
about
screen? Let's
inductive
just have a look at
reasoning,
Arwen's screen.
models.
Yeah, here we go. The intellectual company.
He looks pretty.
You just said da 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 da. Can you
Yeah,
actually
okay,
read
no,
it?
that's close enough. It's a.
Can you
it's a-
show us
it's
where it talks
synonymous.
about
Sorry,
inductive
hold on.
reasoning?
Hold on. Can you read it, please, Rumpus?
Yeah, well, it can't describe. Yes, it doesn't describe the reasoning styles. It'll be a paragraph upon paragraph. It's trying to give you a summary, you idiot.
Sorry, can you read it out loud?
Just for okay. The intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure and behaviour of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment.
So where in that does it talk about making models or using deductive reasoning?
Well,
Does
it talks about the
Rumpus?
study of the structure. You have to propose a structure.
So where does
So
it
you
say
have to
that?
Talk about models or
Sorry,
deductive
sorry.
reasoning.
Hold
or
on,
does it?
Anthony. Where does it say that?
Well, it's a summary.
Sorry, where
I
does
mean,
it
you
say
can't
that?
include all the aspects. It doesn't mention here that science also includes.
Okay,
the
fair enough.
theory,
You're right. You're
observation,
right. You're right.
experiment. I mean, it's a
No
huge
problem.
subject. It's a
I understand.
summary.
I understand,
It's someone's
Rumpus.
idea of what science is.
No problem. No problem. What's this last word that's highlighted? What's an experiment? What's that?
You don't know what an experiment is.
I'm asking you. Maybe you can tell me.
Well, an experiment is where you. I'm just trying to word it. I mean, it is about cause and effect you're going on about. Yes, it's determining the causes and
That's called
effects.
falling at the first hurdle, that Rumpus.
Well, it's not, Anthony. You're an idiot.
Oh no, Rumpus. It is you.
But you don't understand.
It
the
is
difference
you that are the idiot, Rumpus. You've asserted that we need models, and what it, according to this definition, says we need is experiments.
And observation, which you deny all the time. because you're a
Observation
model.
and experiment. Not one or the other. Not just observation, but observation and including, not exclusively one or the other, experiment.
And observation.
Experiment and observation. Yes,
Yes,
experiment
you deny
though.
observation, don't you, Nathan,
Yes.
all the time? You claim
So let's
observations are
focus
not
on the
doing tests,
experiment
and they
bit.
are.
So let's focus on the experiment bit. What's the
Okay, I'm happy to do
experiment?
that, but you're right. But you don't include observation because you're a moron.
Sorry.
Anyway,
so
we'll focus on experiment. I'm happy to
Rumpus,
focus on experiment.
Rumpus. So what's an experiment then?
Right, it's where you test your model, and you
Test
do
your
that, and you're
model?
correct.
No. You test a hypothesis. It is a hypothesis test, not a model test.
Well, as a hypothesis model, usually the hypothesis.
No, not hypothesis model well. Just a hypothesis test. That's
No,
what an experiment
hypotheses
is.
are models usually.
No. A hypothesis in science is a hypothesis, a scientific prediction. It's not a model, it's a scientific prediction. That would be a hypothesis, a scientific prediction.
And that can be a model. The model is a prediction.
No. It would establish your cause and effect, as you admitted a moment ago. Yes, it has
Here we
got
go.
something to do with cause and effect. Models do not establish cause and effect, you bonehead.
So here's a hypothesis, for instance, of the gravity.
No. Let's just repeat it as he wants to ignore it. Let's just say it nice and slowly, just for the audience's benefit, while Rumpus rumpuses the hell out of the hangout. Models. There we go.
Here's...
Soldier. Have to shut him up, audience. That's where I put him on mute. Predicted that he'd rumpus, and he did. So now he's been shut up, so I can say it again really slowly. Models do not establish cause and effect.
Yes,
Let us
they
some numbers
do.
in a whiteboard.
No, they don't. So in a model, you do not have an independent variable that's variable by you as the researcher, physical and manipulable. It's a model.
Nathan,
you
do me a
bonehead.
favour.
Your
Ask
model.
Rumpus why he's not a victim of this on screen right now.
The reification fallacy. Why are you not a victim? You are a victim of this, Rumpus. You're a victim of a reification fallacy.
Not
Can you
at
read
all.
this out
Actually,
to
just
us?
discovered this word, something most of us have been familiar with
Doesn't
for
matter
years.
about how long he's known it. You're a victim of it.
Most amusing that Anthony
So
thinks
why are
he's-
you not a victim of this, Rumpus? Explain to me how it is that you're not a victim of this, because you...
Let me just read it, Anthony. Reification, also known as concretism or hypothesization, if I could say that word, or the fallacy of misplaced concretedness, is a fallacy of ambiguity when an abstraction, abstract belief, or hypothetical construct is treated as if it were concrete, real, or a physical entity. Or, other words, the error of treating something that is not concrete, such as an idea, as a concrete thing. A common case of reification is the confusion of a model with reality. Quote, the map is not the territory.
Not how you
I'm
answer
trying
the
to answer the
question.
question.
Not how you.
I'm trying to answer the question.
Are you just rumpusing, saying I'm trying to answer the question 500 times while I read out what a reification fallacy is, something you're guilty of? You're just rumpusing. See, Rumpus, you asshole. This is why I have a mute button. Anybody watching wants to know why I've got a mute button? I'm reading out the reification fallacy, and Rumpus is talking non-stop, continually, so that the audience, they get to hear me. He doesn't realise that he's been shut up a long time ago, because he's talking, saying, I'm trying to answer, while I'm reading out this fallacy that you are guilty of. The map is not the territory. A common case of reification is the confusion of a model with reality, Rumpus.
Please think quiet.
Is he still here?
You know,
He's on mute.
you know this model thing. Here's a good context I put it in. Let's take it out of the heliocentric thing. You know, we hear a lot about the human immune system, and I remember one time asking a doctor, "Can you draw me a diagram of the immune system?" I mean, I'm not a PhD, but I can draw a diagram of the respiratory and cardiovascular systems. We can call it a model. So, can science give us a model of the immune system? Or is it the whole human body?
Science establishes cause and effect through systematic experimentation based on observation of natural phenomena in the world. That's it. Simple.
Well, You know what?
And,
Maybe
and I am, you know what? I am not Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind. I don't walk around looking at letters and numbers and equations flowing in the air. So I don't know why Rumpus is showing this as.
Hey, Jose, do me a favor. Can you read back that message that Rumpus, that you know, the one that you read before when he was saying that you utter. Don't forget about all the utters. Just read the bit where
Yeah.
he makes his point.
Yeah, he say science is all about proposing models. That's what he said.
Sorry,
I wanna see-
science,
I wanna
son-
see the
science
elite
studies the physical and natural world, Rumpus. That's what science is. And models, when you've got boneheads that suffer from reification fallacies, they have this common case of reification where they confuse a model with reality, Rumpus. That'd be you.
You're an idiot.
That's your comeback, is it? You're an idiot? No. You seem to have this problem, Rumpus. You seem to think that science, which deals with reality, is actually a reification fallacy, where you confuse a model with reality, as specifically stated
The
on screen.
hypothesis is a model. And I'm showing.
Rumpus,
Here's the
Rumpus,
hypothesis.
Let me re-ask the question.
Now, hold on, Anthony. Yeah, I still haven't answered your question. Here is a hypothesis. This is the Newtonian one, and this can be regarded as a model. This models the gravity effects of gravity, and here we have our three variables, and we have the resulting gravitational force. So this is the hypothesis. It models how we believe gravity to work, and it presents a mathematical formula.
But there is no valid hypothesis for gravity, so you're
Well, there
using
is. This is
something
it.
that's unproven.
No, it is proven.
Sorry,
Just
what's,
math.
Oh,
what are
really?
your...
No,
what
this
is-
is
Hold
almost
on.
all hypotheses in physics, for instance, are mathematical equations. The model is a mathematical equation.
Yeah, but
Almost
then-
all
Yeah,
scientific
but now you're
hypotheses
pulling
are
it
mathematical.
away from actual physical Earth into the ethereal.
No, this is what a model is all about. This is why models are very
That's
important.
very
You
useful,
propose-
but
Anthony,
not for
Arwen, stop
determining
interrupting me.
the
Arwen, stop
truth.
interrupting me. I haven't finished. You can have a go in a minute. When
Models
you
are
propose a
reification
hypothesis,
fallacies,
when
you
you
clown.
propose a
Had it
hypothesis, it
read to
uses
you.
in the form of
All right.
because, in fact, consider that when Nathan goes on about
Are you on your
independent variables,
ADHD
they are
medicine again?
quantifying an effect, and therefore there's a mathematical relationship
You need a
between the
constant
independent and dependent variable. So you have to have an equation if you've got independent and dependent variables. So there, that eliminates Nathan's argument for a start.
No, you're defining mathematical independent and dependent variables, and we're not doing mathematics. We're doing science.
That's all hypotheses are almost always mathematical.
Almost always, except when they're scientific. Then they're not mathematical, and that's what we're talking about. Science.
Yeah, well, almost all hypotheses, certainly in physics, will be mathematical in their presentation.
Well, we're not talking about
Will be
mathematical hypothesis. We're talking about scientific hypothesis.
Yes, and all hypotheses in physics, for instance, will be mathematical, you idiot.
No, they can
Yes,
be
they are,
described in mathematics.
Because you have to
They
have an
are
independent
not
and dependent
mathematical.
variable. You have to have a mathematical relationship between them. You
Mathematics is
utter
just
moron.
a
Your
tool to help
hypothesis
you clarify
has to
this
have
matter.
a relationship,
Guys,
and that has to be mathematical.
Can
This
you
is so basic.
guys
You
calm
don't
down?
understand
This
this. I
is
mean, it's just
going
incredible.
nowhere.
You are a moron if you do not understand.
Rumpus, let's go back to my question, please.
No, hold on. I haven't finished answering the previous one.
Well, hang on,
When
hang
you
on,
have
hang on.
independent,
We're
hold
jumping
on,
the
I'll
gun.
answer your question in a second, Anthony. Billy, if you keep on doing that, you're going to get kicked. To have an independent and dependent variable, you have to have a mathematical relationship between them. Your hypothesis has to propose it.
No,
so
you're
there,
a clown.
Anthony, just let him. Hold
yes,
on.
hold on.
He's
So
going
if
to keep
you've got an
rumpusing unless you let him get to the end of the
independent variable,
statement.
You have to have a mathematical relationship.
Citing-
Your
It can be
hypothesis, hold
described
on,
in
hold on.
words. You don't need math.
Hold
It
on,
can be
hold on,
described in
hold on.
words.
So if you
don't
have
need
independent
math.
and a dependent variable, you have to have a mathematical relationship between them.
No,
Citation.
Wait. No.
not true.
Let's pick this apart. Let's unpack it. So he keeps saying you have to. You have to have. Okay. What's your proof of claim?
Yeah, citation, please.
Nathan
Look at
describes
any
it without
look at any-
mathematics
hold on.
all the time.
Look at a
Arwen, let
scientific
Rumpus
paper.
respond.
Look at a scientific paper, and if you have an independent dependent variable, you have to have a mathematical equation in there, you moron.
Yes.
No, you don't.
What
Citation,
evidence
please.
is there?
You have to have a mathematical
Citation,
equation.
please,
If
Rumpus.
you've got two variables and you want a
Sorry,
relationship
bear with
between
me.
them,
Just
you
for
have
a
to have a
second.
mathematical
Sorry,
equation.
Rumpus.
You
Just
can
bear with me a
describe
second.
it.
Arwen, hold
It's
on.
so
Hold on,
Describe
Arwen.
it.
Hold on, Rumpus.
But
Hold
no,
on.
that's just
Hold
bloody-
on. Hold on.
maths. I know that's the way you work, but anybody in a
It's-
who wants to
Rumpus.
quantify something,
Rumpus, I'm
you
on your
have to have a
side here.
mathematical relationship.
Rumpus.
Math
you've
is just like a
Arwen,
language.
for God's sake, shut up.
Mathematics is the language of science.
Oh, I know. I was taught that as
So,
well.
Good.
But
Rumpus,
guess what?
you've
Yes.
been asked twice for a citation.
Oh, well, okay, go and get any mathematical paper.
No,
and
you
will
go and
see-
get it. This is your assertion. Go and get a
Right,
citation.
Okay. I'll go and get the paper that George Nathan got about the radar bouncing off the sun. Then
No, a citation that proves that maths is science.
It's the language of science.
Specifically,
citation. Hello, don't just
It's the
assert it a
language of
third
science.
time. Shut up and listen. Don't assert it another time. Get us a citation to back your assertion.
No, I'm not going to bother. It's so obvious.
Oh, well then I'll kick.
Science is all
Right, if
about
you don't, I will
quantifying
kick you out. We're not
Good,
here for your
excellent, you're
ipsy-dixit fallacy. I'm not interested in what you
Science
assert
is all about
without
quantifying things,
anything
Nathan.
to
That's
back
gotta
up.
have numbers in it.
No, it's not. It's about proving cause and
No, science is about quantifying things.
No,
For instance,
cause and effect, not quantifying.
and you have to quantify that,
No,
Anthony. For
you
instance,
don't. That's
yes,
not
you-
what science
yes,
is.
you do, you moron. You don't
Cause-
quantify. That's not science.
Not quantify.
Absolutely, you moron. Almost all things in science are quantifying things.
No, cause and effect.
Only in
Absolutely. Yes, and
complex
you have to determine.
hypotheses,
And you have to
Rumpus.
determine that relationship
Only
between cause
in
and effect by a
complex
mathematical relationship.
hypotheses.
Cause and effect are mathematical relationships, you moron.
Only
You
in
want to know if
complex
I- for instance,
hypotheses,
if I have twice the mass,
So I asserted
I want
that
to get
Rumpus
twice
was
the
guilty
force.
of.
Fuck off, Billy, you little wanker.
Right, Rumpus, stop. Let's go back
You
to my
little
original
wanker. Who's
assertion.
that? A little tosser.
Rumpus,
Little
let me go
fucking
back to my original assertion. I accuse you of being a victim of the reification fallacy in that you continuously confuse models with reality. Prove that you are not a victim of reification.
Right, the formula I've got here for the force between two objects in the Newton Cavendish experiment, that is a formula, and it is demonstrated as being real. It's been verified, measured, and validated. So therefore, it's not a reification, because that's what happens in the real world. We can prove this relationship using your dependent variable relationship. You change those values of the masses, you change the distance, you get all the mathematical effect causes and effects that the formula, the hypothesis, the model predicts. Therefore, it's not reification.
Hypothesis is no method, and it's a real. Thanks. That's perfect.
Yeah, it's just constantly repeating the same thing. I've asked him to provide an actual citation for any of this nonsense, and he just keeps reasserting it. Math is reality, basically. It's just a rhetoric line. It's not actually citing anything. It's just we've got to accept it. And then when we ask him to provide some evidence for it, all he does is put his maths equation back up on the screen. I don't know. What a waste of time.
Yes.
So, because it's verified by experimenting,
You never use the
by systematic
independent variable.
experimentation,
You
it's
never
verified.
use R as the
Okay,
independent
let's hear
variable.
it.
Systematically verified, Arwin.
So, what's the system?
How can you
Never
deny
use
reality?
E or
It's
R as the
verified.
Chill
independent
out.
variable. Admit
Rumpus,
it.
chill out.
What?
What's
What's
the
Arwin
system?
about independent? Sorry,
Chill
I
out.
didn't hear the
Chill
question.
out.
Arwin.
Just relax, man. What's your systematic
what was the question?
experimentation?
What was the question, Arwin?
What's your system? No, I'm asking something. What's your systematic experimentation?
Well, Cavendish's experiment is that?
It's not an experiment.
It's an experiment. Absolutely, it's the best experiment ever.
What's the independent variable?
The mass. Right, well, we've got, as you can see from this formula, there are three
It's the
variables.
best experiment
Hold
ever.
on, let me finish. There are three variables you can play with: the two masses and the radius. So you can change. You can have three experiments, and you can change either one of those as your independent. Have either one of those as your independent variable in your experiment. And your
Sorry,
dependent
hold on.
variable-
I'm a bit confused.
Hold on. Your dependent variable
Sorry, I'm a
is
bit
the
confused.
force that
What's the cause?
created-
Sorry, Rumpus. What's causing this?
The masses cause gravitational force.
Mass causes gravitational force.
Correct.
And Cavendish, you assert, is an experiment with an independent singular.
Correct.
Independent
Well,
singular.
You could decide what your independent variable. You've got a choice of three. You
Sorry,
can decide on three
hold on.
experiments.
I'm a bit confused. I didn't even get to the end of my sentence before you interrupted and said there's three. So I was about to say it has an independent and a dependent variable. And before I got to the end of that sentence, you said there's three.
You can choose one of the three.
That's not science.
Yes, it is. It's absolute
Complex
science.
hypothesis.
What you don't understand, Nathan, is there are three factors here. There are three things that come together, three causes, in effect, to the force.
Then
And
it's
those
not
three things
science.
come together to have one effect.
Then it's
and you
not
can
science.
change any one of those three, and then you can determine which one of the, what each one of those three do in an experiment, which you just change one of them, you isolate them, but all three of them are acting all the time.
Then
But
it's
you
not
can decide to
science.
just change one.
It's not
Really? So
science.
change
You are
G.
sorry, Arwin.
No,
Sorry,
you can't
it's
change.
not-
I said there were
Arwin,
three variables.
please,
Arwin,
Arwin,
G
you're
is a
not
constant.
helping matters. Thank you. You
G
are
is a
not.
constant. You can't change that.
Sorry, you keep talking. You are not establishing the independent variable as the sole cause of the effect. Therefore, it is not science.
Yes, it is science, because you don't understand that almost always in science there's more than one thing that causes things.
In science, you have an independent variable.
That's in an
You haven't let me finish my sentence, so I'll shut you up. This is why I have a mute button. Conspiracy cats, if you are watching, this is how I deal with assholes that talk over me. So, I will make my point regardless of whether Rumpus talks continually or not, and lets me get half a breath of a sentence out. I will simply shut him up. That is why I have a mute button. Not because I want to censor reality, as Rumpus will probably be asserting while he is not being heard, because I only got half a breath of a sentence in. I do not want this to be the result of Rumpus constantly talking.
There are three factors,
Yeah.
Nathan.
So I didn't
You
finish
in
my
an
sentence,
experiment
Rumpus.
decide which one to vary. It's very simple.
Sorry,
There's three
maybe you
factors.
can answer my question.
Yes,
Rumpus, maybe you can answer my
and then
question.
you test it.
What
It's
is
a complex
You have three-
Arwin?
again, you
Right,
have three
Arwin, you're really not
experiments.
helping.
Hold on,
Thank you,
Arwin.
Arwin.
Let's
I'd
make
like
an
to
Rumpus.
actually have
You
an
can have three
attempt at a
experiments
simple.
to test all of the three
Yeah,
variables.
now I'm going to get Rumpus doing it constantly.
Controlled
Rumpus.
variables, Nathan. Go and look up controlled variables in an
Yeah, I'm
experiment.
asking you that question.
Do
What
you know what
is?
controlled variable is, Nathan?
You keep talking. What
Do
is?
you know what controlled
Oh,
variable
that
is?
was 2 words, and Rumpus goes again.
Well, do you know what controlled variable is?
I'm asking you what an independent variable is, and you're telling me there's
Okay.
3, apparently.
I'll explain it. I'll
What
answer the
is-
question.
Yeah, what is an independent variable?
Right, great. Okay, so you have your hypothesis. In this particular case, you've got 3 variables, and in an experiment to test the hypothesis, you decide to.
Sorry, I asked what an independent variable is. Let's get a bit slower with Rumpus, because he's clearly stupid. Aren't you, dumbass? Let's try that one more time, and split the 2 words in half.
I'm trying to get to the punchline.
Yeah, I'm
Right,
trying to
the
ask you the
independent
question
variable-
again, because you
You want
didn't
me to answer
understand
what?
the question. Can you listen
I'm
again,
answering
please?
the question.
You didn't understand the
It's
question.
a few steps, Nathan. I'm answering
Please,
your
can you
question.
be
I will
quiet,
get to
Rumpus?
exactly the point you want.
I'm not going to shout. I'm going to ask you politely to please be quiet for a moment and listen to the question again.
Right.
What does the word independent mean, please?
Right, that's the variable you choose to vary in the experiment.
Sorry, what does the word independent mean?
It is not dependent on something else. It is free of the influences of other things.
So it is on its own, alone. Independent means not affected by something else.
Yes, but in an experiment, the effect is the cause of 3 things.
Sorry,
You
we're
don't
not talking about the
understand
effect.
that, I know.
Stop. We are not talking about the effect. We are talking about the cause, an independent variable. Now, I'm
Yes,
asking
but the-
about the independent soul not affected by anything else, cause in the Cavendish experiment, and your answer is there are 3.
Correct.
Not
There are 3
independent,
things that
so
cause
they
the
are
force,
not independent.
That the independent nature is in the experiment. You don't understand the difference between the hypothesis and what you do in an experiment. In an experiment, you only vary 1 variable, but the hypothesis has 3 things coming together to cause an effect as a result of their interaction.
No, that would be a complex hypothesis.
Almost all are, Nathan, you moron.
Sorry, I didn't ask for a complex hypothesis.
They all are.
Sorry, excuse
Almost
me.
all
Sorry, you're
scientific-
just saying the same thing again while I try and make my devastating point, which you don't seem to want to allow me to do. That would be
You're a moron if you think there's only one.
So I am. I'm just going to get ad hominem attacks while I try and make my devastating point. I've said it once and you've tried to rumpus it, asshole. Again, conspiracy cats. You can come here or be a coward. The reason I have a mute button is because of assholes like this guy who don't want me to point out again, this is not a hypothesis. This is a complex hypothesis.
They all are, Nathan. They all are.
No. A scientific prediction has an independent and a dependent variable. Not 3, 1. Independent. The presumed cause, 1. Singular. Independent variable.
Don't know the difference between a hypothesis and experiment. In an experiment, you just vary one thing,
No,
but
this
there's
isn't
still the
a hypothesis. You've just explained that. You're not giving us a hypothesis. You're giving us a complex hypothesis.
They all are, Nathan.
Oh, you just keep adding on that every hypothesis was a complex hypothesis. If that was the case, we wouldn't have the word complex attached to it. It would just be called a hypothesis. Unfortunately, a hypothesis is not a complex hypothesis. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to add the word complex on.
Well, they're all, no, it's taken as read, Nathan.
Taken as read, what? That something that is very clearly defined as having an independent and a dependent variable, that would be a hypothesis, otherwise known as a scientific prediction. That would be taken as read that it doesn't actually mean independent on its own, singular alone, and in fact means a totally different definition, coincidentally the definition of a complex hypothesis. No, that's not taken as read. That's your sleight of hand.
Do you understand in the Cavendish experiment, if you didn't have the other mass, that nothing would happen? Therefore,
Sorry,
they're playing a role.
we're not moving past the fact that we have three not independent variables. We're not moving past that.
In the hypothesis, Nathan, but not in the experiment.
No,
you don't understand the difference between them.
Sorry, you've done it again. That's a complex hypothesis.
And this is almost all are, Nathan.
Almost all, except the ones that are scientific. This isn't
This is
science.
a scientific one, Nathan.
No,
Exactly.
no, that's what I asserted at the start when you said that your evidence, your systematic experimentation was Cavendish. I pointed out that it is not science, sir. And now we're at the nitty-gritty of you confusing.
No, you don't understand what science is.
No, you don't understand the difference between hypothesis, which you seem to continually assert that we must take as read that a complex hypothesis is a hypothesis. No, a hypothesis is a scientific prediction. A complex hypothesis is not, simply for one reason, because you do not have an independent, on its own, singular, alone, independent variable. You have
Do you understand, Nathan, that the
multiple variables? Yeah? Don't constantly talk over the end of my point, Rumpus. You're just losing. That's all you're doing, and every time you do it, I'll just shut you up and make my point again. This circle jerk will be my circle jerk, telling you where you're wrong. Your sleight of hand trick hasn't worked. A hypothesis, scientific prediction, is not a complex hypothesis. Regardless of your assertion that almost all of them are, I don't care. Almost all of them are not scientific.
Do you understand that both masses in the Cavendish experiment are playing a role? So therefore, they are playing a role, and just the fact you're varying one doesn't mean to say that the other mass is not playing a role. It's very simple.
I understand that. You do not have an independent variable, as would be necessary in a scientific prediction.
And you can have one in the Cavendish experiment. You decide.
Yes, I'm sure you can have one in a Cavendish experiment, but you cannot have multiple variables as your independent variable in a scientific... You see, I'll do it again. Shut him up because he doesn't like the devastating point. Unfortunately, that will be shut up, and I will be telling the audience that you constantly try to substitute complex hypothesis with scientific prediction. A complex hypothesis is not a scientific prediction because a scientific prediction or hypothesis has an independent variable. You do not have that in the Cavendish experiment.
I am not suggesting variables in an experiment. I am not suggesting multiple independent variables in an experiment.
He's done talking,
in the hypothesis,
how can one have a happy anniversary with a rumpus?
And the hypothesis, though, you do have multiple variables. This is why you've got control.
No, you don't. So in a complex hypothesis, you would have multiple variables as the cause. In a scientific hypothesis, that would be a true hypothesis, one that establishes an independent and a dependent variable. You definitely do not have multiple independent variables. It doesn't matter how much you rumpus the hangout rumpus, you're not going to censor reality. So I think I've laboured this point enough. I'll allow you to rumpus at will. Rumpus away.
Do you understand what a controlled variable is, Nathan? And therefore, in the Cavendish experiment, one of the other masses is held.
We're not talking about controlled variables. That's another sleight of hand tactic. So I'll shut you up again. We're talking about the independent variable. That would be the cause, presumed cause in a scientific prediction. That would be a hypothesis, not a complex hypothesis.
And the experiment. Why is someone doing that?
What? Rumpusing you?
Banjos.
That's a positive contribution. Well done.
You're a high class hick.
I'm afraid it's so basic, Nathan. You don't understand what's happening in the hypothesis and the experiment. In the experiment, you
Sorry,
have
you
just
don't
one
have a
independent variable,
hypothesis.
but in
You're
the
ignoring
hypothesis,
me.
you have more.
I have to keep shutting you up,
Don't
and then you ignore it.
understand what a controlled variable
Sorry,
is, do you?
this a complex hypothesis?
They all are, Nathan.
Sorry, is this a complex hypothesis?
I would regard it as simple.
Is it a complex hypothesis?
I would say it was simple.
Is it a complex hypothesis?
Simple.
Does it get categorized as a cause and effect relationship with an independent and dependent variable, or is it a complex hypothesis?
Right, you're confusing what happens in an experiment where you have independent variables and the
I'm not
hypothesis
asking
where you
about
have
the
multiple
experiment.
variables.
I'm asking about the hypothesis and whether or not it is a complex hypothesis.
No, it's a simple hypothesis.
Sorry. Is it establishing an independent and dependent variable, and therefore
That's what you do
classifiable
in an
as... Oh,
experiment.
I am not allowed to continue my sentence.
But you keep on ignoring the fact you don't understand the difference between what's in the hypothesis and what you do in the experiment. They're
We're not
two
talking
separate
about the
things.
experiment. We're talking about the hypothesis.
Right,
It comes
in which case you
before-
don't have independent variables in the
It
hypothesis. You just have the full.
It comes before the experiment, and
You
we're
don't
talking
have
solely
independent variables in a hypothesis,
solely
Nathan.
about the hypothesis.
You only have independent variables in an experiment. You don't have independent variables in a hypothesis. You have them in an experiment.
What? Let's get that
What
as a
did you
quote.
say?
You don't have independent variables in a hypothesis. Quote, 2018, Rumpus the fuckwit.
You're a moron. You have it in an experiment where you hold the other two.
Present my
Say it
screen.
again. Say it again, Rumpus. Say, in a hypothesis, you do not have an independent variable. Say it again so I can have another good laugh.
You look up controlled variables, and in a hypothesis, you
Sorry, we're not talking about control variables, slippery little asshole.
independent variables in your experiment.
Yeah. And what's a hypothesis?
That's your proposal of your model.
No. A hypothesis is your scientific prediction, and your experiment is your hypothesis test. So no, it's not a model. It establishes your independent and dependent variable, your cause and
That's
effect.
the choice in experiment. This one, you can have 3 experiments. You can have 3 experiments for this hypothesis, and therefore you have
so
3.
there's 3
independent variables with
Cavendish.
3 separate experiments.
Oh, right.
Wait a
So-
second, Nathan.
so
Let's
you run
get
the
back to
Cavendish
his-
once.
Wait a second, Nathan. Let's get back to his original point. There is no independent variables in a scientific hypothesis. Let's stay there for a couple minutes.
Yeah, it's in the experiment you have independent variables where you're playing with them
So-
and you see.
Okay, so there's none
Can
in
you
the
not-
hypothesis.
John, I know you can't do maths, but can you not see that in
Hey,
this
Nathan.
formula that I'm
Hey,
presenting,
Nathan, could you share
the
my
3
screen,
variables come together?
Yeah, sure, John. I
him
have,
up.
I have to shut him up just so the audience can hear. You're trying to say, can you share my screen? Yes, you can, John. It's just Rumpus won't shut up ever.
Okay,
You cope
so
with the
he
formula,
said
John.
that there's no independent
I mean, I know you're
variables in a
scared to debate
hypothesis,
me.
correct?
I know you're scared to debate me,
Can you
John.
shut him up?
But even you surely can see in this formula there are 3 things that are causing one effect. They come together. There are 3 factors with a constant,
Nathan.
and they come together to form a force. And in an experiment, you then decide to isolate them and keep the other 2 as
Nathan.
controlled variables. I mean, you know what controlled variable is. You've mentioned it a number of times in your presentations.
Oh,
So you should
God.
know that you've got controlled variables in an experiment, and then you decide to vary the independent variable in the experiment.
Yes, thank you,
Nathan.
Rumpus. Shout out to
Thank-
MIDI HC. Unfortunately, it just won't. It's whenever I get you on a phone call from you to me. So I'm going to call you back, John, just so I can hopefully share your screen.
Okay.
Okay, let's try that. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me, John? Ah, damn it. Skype always fiddles around when you want it to be nice and slick. Let's try that one more time. Check, check, check. Can you hear me?
Check, check.
Yay! Right, let's try that again.
All right, wait one. All right. Tell me when it's up.
Yeah, you're up.
It's
Good to go?
Yeah, ready when you are. I'll see how
So-
long you get before interruption.
So Rumpus said that there are no independent variables in a hypothesis. So, from the nature of science and the scientific method. Oh, and he's said this on many occasions prior to this that I have filed. But let's just go with this one because everyone heard it. So, a hypothesis. This is from the nature of science and the scientific method. A hypothesis also contains prediction about its verifiability. For example, if a hypothesis is true, then 1 should happen when 2 is manipulated.
In
The
an
first
experiment.
blank is the dependent variable.
Sorry.
It depends on
Just
what
repeat
you're
that again.
doing.
Sorry, John.
in this-
Of course, Rumpus couldn't contain himself, so I had to use my mute button. I had no option because you were literally mid-sentence. So do you want to start again? Sorry.
No, that's okay. So, from the nature of science and the scientific method, a hypothesis. The hypothesis should contain a prediction about its verifiability. For example, if the hypothesis is true, then 1 should happen when 2 is manipulated. The first blank is the dependent variable. It depends on what you are doing in the second blank. And the second blank, number 2, is the independent variable. You manipulate it to get a reaction. There should be no other variables in the experiment that may affect the dependent variable. So, Rumpus, you would fail 5th grade general science. Thank you very much.
Made damn sure that the Hangout didn't hear a word of that. But there we go.
In
the
my
audience.
hypothesis, you've got 3 variables,
The
but in the
audience got to hear
experiment,
it.
you try and reduce the independent variable to 1.
Okay, thank you, Nathan. Very informative information. Unfortunately, Rumpus couldn't contain his anus mouth.
You're an idiot, I'm afraid. Polly. You don't seem to know the basics about proposing a globe theory. So,
I'm sorry. Where are your NASA tapes that you are digitizing? I'm sorry, you don't have any.
well,
Oh.
okay, you might be okay. I'll take it. Okay, I'll accept you're doing a good job if you're digitizing those NASA tapes. That is a challenge. So well done for that. I'll give you that one. Well done. But please, for God's sake, learn about the position of Polaris and changing latitude changes the angle. Instead of, and that proves the sphericity of the Earth, because as you change latitude, the angle to the Polaris changes. That wouldn't happen on a flat Earth. And you let Nathan get away with getting away with that. It was
That's
just
lovely.
ridiculous.
What about you getting away with? Sorry, Rumpus. You claimed that a hypothesis doesn't have an independent variable. That's only
It
in
has
an experiment.
variables. But in the experiments, you have an independent variable.
Yes,
and, you have
and
your
in the
control
hypothesis.
variable. And John knows this. John
Sorry,
knows
it's
what
on
a control
screen.
variable is. I've
Sorry,
seen
it's
him
on
present
screen
that.
and it was red. You just didn't listen. You talked the entire time, like stupid people do. So, can you see it on screen?
There should be no other variables in the experiment, not in the hypothesis. Jesus Christ. Look at
Sorry.
it. Read it, for God's sake.
Yes. It's, sorry,
Red.
just for Rumpus.
There
Hold
should
on.
be no other variables in the
Rumpus, try to
experiment.
listen. You just don't shout. Just
Rumpus.
because you've got a louder voice than everyone doesn't make you right.
The reason to have a
Bear with me.
hypothesis
Everybody
in the
shut
first
up. John, can you highlight the heading of what this is describing, please? What does that say, Rumpus?
That's a hypothesis, but it's also describing
So we
the
are
experiment
specifically
as
talking
well.
about a what?
But
sorry?
this is John's writing. He's a literate moron.
Sorry,
I mean,
let's just shut you up. Where's this from, John? Is this your writing?
No, it's from Kristen McClellan, The Nature of Science and the
see
Scientific
the word
Method, the
experiment?
Geological
Shut up.
Society
Rumpus,
of
just because you
America.
can talk louder and over everybody doesn't mean you can deny reality. You are in fact wrong here, Rumpus. Totally wrong. A
I'm totally right.
hypothesis, as defined here, not
See, look
by
at the word
John.
experiment, Nathan.
Try to shut up, Rumpus. We're trying to educate you. We're helping you. You know, you should listen when you're talking. Simple. It's having an explanation for what a hypothesis is. You don't understand what a hypothesis is.
I do exactly. You don't. You mix. You can.
No, you said it right quite clearly. Hypotheses don't contain an independent variable, Rumpus. Yet here's a citation, something you refuse to bring up, that makes you look like a jackass because you're wrong. So, you can do what you're doing, which is talking constantly, but the audience, all 200 of them, get to hear you being humiliated, Rumpus. You're wrong. A hypothesis, scientific prediction, does
And there's an
contain
experiment in there as well, isn't there, Nathan?
does contain
Didn't
an
work
independent
experiment.
variable, Rumpus. You're wrong.
Come on, John. Tell Nathan what a controlled variable is.
We're not talking about controlled.
They
Independent
are, because
variable.
it's crucial to this
As
understanding about
found,
the difference between a hypothesis.
as found in a hypothesis, Rumpus.
Come on, John. Show him what a controlled
No,
variable
no,
is.
my name's Nathan. You were wrong,
Yeah, come on,
Rumpus.
well, you don't seem to be understanding. You're missing, you're ignoring the point that
Yeah,
I'm
you
making.
don't understand what a hypothesis is. You asserted that it doesn't contain an independent variable that's only contained within an experiment, and you are wrong. I would assert, based on your inaccuracy, that you are also stupid because you continually talk when it's being explained to you.
That's the sad
So come on,
truth.
John, explain to Nathan what a controlled variable is.
We're talking about an independent variable, something
Yes,
you
and there's
asserted
other
is
variables
not
as well, Nathan. and you
in
don't,
a hypothesis. And it is, Rumpus. You're
you
wrong.
don't recognise the existence of the other variables, do you, Nathan? Then you need to,
Sorry, we're
because
not talking about the other variables. We are specifically talking about the cause of things. That's what science establishes. That's what we're talking about. Not the bits that you hold constant so they don't have any effect. We're talking about the actual thing that causes the effect. The independent variable. That's what we're talking about. And your assertion was that a hypothesis, scientific prediction, doesn't have one. That makes you, quite literally,
things, but
a
in the
dumbass.
hypothesis, you just talk about variables. But in the
Just
experiment,
talking
you have
non-stop.
controlled and independent and dependent variables. So,
Just
John, you got that right.
just
Well
talking
done.
non-stop,
Excellent.
Rumpus.
And
Just talking
can you explain
non-stop.
to Nathan what a controlled variable is? And it's still
Sorry,
participating.
Rumpus,
like
I'm not going to have this for the rest of the show, so you're just
have
talking
the
non-stop.
cause and effect. You have to have the other things present, as in the Cavendish experiment. You have to have those two balls. If you removed one of the other variables, you would have no effect at all. So you can't ignore them. They're always there, but they're just constant. They're controlled variables.
You said experiment? Is that what you said?
Yeah, he said it's the Cavendish experiment.
Oh, the experiment. Okay, well, let's go. Step one. Right? Oh, I'm sorry. I have the other clown's remarks. Are we still presenting?
Yeah, you're still presenting. Maybe
Yes.
Rumpus can take us through it.
Okay, I'm happy to do so.
Should I erase these?
Yes, please.
Let's just take these out. It's going to be the same thing, but. Okay, natural phenomena observed, please.
Mass attracts mass.
So you can observe mass?
Things that have mass attract other things with mass.
Can you define mass for us?
It's the acceleration that something acquires as a result of a particular force being applied. The mass is that ratio.
Do you have a citation, please?
God, right, okay.
You realize I have the definition up right now on the screen.
And there you are, the change in motion as a result of a net force applied. So there it's effectively repeating what I just said. And it even mentions the word acceleration. So yes, that's effectively the definition I just gave you.
Okay. And do you realize that inertia is also the same definition?
Yes, indeed. And inertia is the when you have a free body, inertia is the same as its mass. But you never find inertia used in equations in science. It's just a sort of general description.
We're not
Mass
concerned with
is the property
equations.
we
We're
talk
concerned
about
with the
when we say
definitions of the
result
term
of acceleration as a result
mass.
of force.
Now,
Inertia is more of a concept. It's not used.
We have two different words. With
Yeah,
the
they
same
effectively the same
definition.
thing in this case.
We have two different words.
And they
with
mean the same
definition.
thing in this case. They mean the same thing.
That's inane.
In the case of a free body, they mean the same thing.
Yeah. So mass and inertia
are the same thing for a free body.
So we have, like I said before, we have the same definition, right? For two different words. That's a problem. So
they mean
let's
the same
move away
thing.
from
In
that.
effect, for a free
Let's
body,
go
they are the
back
same
because
thing.
we want to embarrass you on this one.
No, you're a moron if you don't understand that. Anybody who's done
ad hominem.
Anybody with 15-year-olds done physics knows this.
Okay. So natural phenomena observed. You said mass attracts mass.
Things with mass
so
attract
let's
other
just
things
roll
with
with
mass,
that.
yeah. I'm like things
Okay,
with mass.
mass
Obviously,
attracts
mass,
mass, so
is
we
a
can-
property of something. So you can say,
Okay,
you want to be
so
particular, you can say things
Your
with mass
natural
attract other things with
phenomena
mass.
observed
Mass
is
attracts mass will
the
do.
dependent variable also. So let's just put that right there. Okay, alternative hypothesis, please.
Mass doesn't attract mass.
That's the alternative.
Yeah.
Mass.
Oh, sorry. Is it? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, sorry. The alternative is the mass. Sorry, no, I got that right. Yes, yes, you're right. I got that wrong way around because it's the null hypothesis that it was the main mass doesn't attract mass. Yeah. So this is the. Yeah. No. So could you correct that, please? I meant to say mass. I was thinking. I thought you were going to type for the null hypothesis, but not. This is the alternative. Yeah. So mass attracts mass is the alternative hypothesis.
Hold on 1 second. So you're
It's the
saying
null
this
hypothesis, it
definition
doesn't
I wrote. Would you calm down, please? I can't hear anything. So you're saying that, hold on, wait a second. You're saying the alternative hypothesis that you just gave me is what you meant for the null?
Yes.
Is that what you?
So the null hypothesis, mass doesn't attract mass, and the
Okay,
alternative
okay.
hypothesis is that mass does attract mass.
Okay, so the alternative hypothesis is what?
Sorry, can I quantify this? Because of course science is all about quantifying. The alternative hypothesis is actually, of course, the quantifying of that and presenting of that formula that the force between masses.
Can you give me the alternative hypothesis, please?
The alternative hypothesis is the force between masses is equal to G times the product of the masses divided by R squared. That is the succinct description of the alternative hypothesis.
What? Say it slowly.
The language of science is math.
Holy shit, Rumpus.
The language of science
Holy
is math.
shit.
The language of science is math, and you always
Can you please give me the
and you
alternative
present a
hypothesis
quantifiable
slowly?
relationship between the things. Because
Oh
I've just
my
decided,
God.
Man, that was
hardcore
hardcore.
Right, hold on. I think I figured a way around this. Everybody let Rumpus say this sentence at least once, then I won't allow him to repeat it 50 times, then we'll move on. Go ahead, Rumpus.
Right, so the alternative hypothesis, the force between masses is equal to the product of the masses divided by the distance between them squared. That is the alternative hypothesis. And it's the formula I've got in my avatar window there that you can see.
Can you say that? Can you say it slowly? Can you see my screen?
It's actually G. Okay, I'll say it very slowly then. The universal constant of gravity, big G, times one mass.
Wait a second.
Hold on.
Divided by the distance between them squared.
Oh my God. This is...
Okay, so I go through it. Sorry, if I go too quickly, I'll do it again. Okay, here we go. I'll try and do it slowly.
Look at my screen. Look at what I got right now. The force between masses is equal to the product of
the masses, the two masses. We're dealing with two masses. The two masses, we should say.
Okay, hold on.
Can you have two masses in there, please?
Okay.
Times the universal gravitational constant. Divided by the distance between the two masses squared. Should be the center of the two masses, of course.
Is that good? Can you read that?
Yeah, I'll do. I mean, obviously, I would have put it in actual maths terms. I would have just said F is equal to Gm1m2 divided by R squared, but you've used words for it, and that's because you don't like maths. But here we go. But that will do.
No, maths are not hypotheses.
Yeah, they are.
Hypothesis is a statement of cause and
almost all
effect.
science has hypotheses formed in the form of a mathematical
They
equation.
have none. Zero. Math is not physics. So,
I mean,
back
John,
to the
are you capable of writing that?
hypothesis, please.
John, are you capable of copying what I've got on my avatar? I'm just putting it in there to make it
confirm
easy.
that this is your alternative hypothesis, please?
Yeah, but you see, the reason we use maths is because it's succinct and exact.
That this is your
I'm
alternative
talking. Who's that
hypothesis?
moron in the background? I'm answering a question, you idiot.
No, you're an absolute
Shut
lunatic.
up, moron.
Eric,
Come on. No.
Rumpus and John.
Eric, just let this not descend even further.
Okay.
Can you just
reality.
confirm that is your alternative hypothesis?
That's the
Are you
language
happy
of
with
reality, moron.
Just tell me, are you happy with it, Rumpus? What's on screen?
Well, I would like
let me
John to
repeat
copy
it.
my
Let
formula,
me
but it
repeat
will
it.
do.
You
It
tell
will
me if
do.
it's
But
wrong. The
he's got
force
analogy to
between
maths.
masses. Oh my God. The force between masses is equal to the product of the two masses multiplied by the universal gravitational constant divided by the distance between the two masses squared. Is that correct?
That is correct. It look a lot better if it's in mathematical form. It's much
No
shorter.
problem.
It will deal.
I don't care what
that'll do for the
Who
moment.
cares? That's fine. Great.
Okay. What is your independent variable in your hypothesis?
Right. Because it's a hypothesis, you've got three variables. So we're talking about the experiment now. We're not talking about the hypothesis. We're
No,
talking about
hypothesis, I just gave you the definition. Number one and
you
number
didn't.
two.
No,
It has
you're
a
wrong.
dependent
You're wrong.
variable
We're now talking about the
right
experiment.
here and an independent variable.
Yeah. Now
What
you're talking about
is your
experiment. We've got.
independent
Hold on. Let me
variable
answer. In my hypothesis, you'll see that I've got three variables. I've got the two masses and I've got the distance between them. So in my experiment, I've got to decide which one I want to be an independent variable.
Stage yet.
And I'm
We're
going
at
to
the
make the other
hypothesis
two.
stage.
John, you know this.
Rumpus.
John, you know this. You know
Hold
that
on a second,
control variable.
John,
So I'm going to
Rumpus,
make-
John, both of you. Hold on. So, hold on, Rumpus. We're not at the experiment stage.
We are. Well, okay. Well, this is the point. In the experiment, you've got to decide. Because
I'll
I've
say
got
it again
three variables
for
to
the
play
dumb,
with.
deaf idiot. We are
I've
not
got three
yet
variables
at.
to play with. I've got 3 variables to play with, and now we're talking about the
Shut
experiment.
up. We're not at the experiment stage. We're at the stage prior to that. Hypothesis stage. Okay?
No, we're not. The question that John is asking is about the experiment. What is my independent variable? There are 3 variables.
Does this
in
look
my
like an
hypothesis.
experiment? I'm at the hypothesis stage and I
No.
just went to the
No.
independent
Well,
variable.
that's why you're stupid, John. You don't.
Right, he's just giving you an ad hominem, so I'll say it for the audience again. Before experiment comes hypothesis. That's the stage we're at.
Yeah. No, we're not, because John has jumped by talking.
What do you mean, no, we're not? Yes, we are.
Done.
Nobody's doing any experiments here, okay?
Yes. Right, John, do you understand? I've got 3 variables.
Don't ask him something. I'll say it again, because you're an idiot. We're not at the experiment stage.
Right, so hold on. In the hypothesis you've just written down for me, do you understand there are 3 variables? John.
What is
understand
your
that?
independent variable?
Hold on, John. Do you understand there are 3 variables in that alternative hypothesis?
Then the hypothesis is void.
No, it's not. Almost all hypotheses have got more
It's
than
a
one variable.
complex
You idiot.
hypothesis. It will
Yes,
not
almost all
suffice
hypotheses you
to
come across will have
prove
more
a
than one
cause.
variable.
Sorry,
Okay.
bear with me a
This is
second.
about-
Can I just ask Rumpus a question?
Don't have.
Hold on. Does the fact that almost all hypotheses are complex hypotheses
They're not
meet
complex.
Rumpus? I didn't even
one makes
finish
that
my
distinction.
question.
Oh, Nathan,
What
that's
an
you.
asshole. My question was going to be, before Rumpus started talking continually, was does the fact, as he asserts, that almost all of them are, make any difference to the fact that a scientific prediction requires an independent, one, singular, on its own, variable? Does it make any difference that almost all of them don't have it?
Absolutely wrong, Nathan. That almost all predictions involve more than one variable. How can you not know this? How
Sorry,
can you not know this?
We are
Let's take
talking.
your card,
Sorry,
Nathan.
you said almost all predictions, so that's a false equivalency. We're not talking about almost all predictions. We're talking about scientific hypothesis, scientific predictions, not almost all predictions. I don't care what almost all predictions do. We're talking about something very narrow, something very specific, a scientific prediction.
Right. For instance, let's talk about an apple dropping to
No,
the ground.
what is your independent variable in this alternative hypothesis, please?
The do not have independent variables in the hypothesis. You have them in the experiment.
Really, dickhead. Right, John, let's just nip this in the bud for the second time so we can soundbite this twice. And let's keep it concise so we can have it for him. Let's see if he listens or talks continually like stupid people do when they're wrong and don't want to accept
have
it.
more than one variable, Nathan. How can you not know this?
Rumpus, please.
I mean, this is so basic.
Yeah, I know.
Rumpus,
Can
please?
Look,
Good boy.
you are
Good,
proposing
there's a
that
good lad.
an
And you,
a
Arwen.
complex
There's a good lad,
hypothesis
Rumpus. There's a
is
good lad.
okay.
It's on screen. Maybe
So-
Rumpus would like to read it, like we do at school when we're trying to educate people.
Right, there in the red, it says there should be no other variables in the experiment. They're talking about the experiment in there, not the hypothesis.
Sorry, read the heading first, Rumpus. Let's start with the heading. What is this heading describing?
Your claim is that this is just a hypothesis, not the experiment. And then it talks about the experiment, doesn't it,
Right,
Nathan? So, it's not
so the hypothesis will be expressed as an experiment. But we're not yet talking about the experiment. We're talking about the scientific prediction, also known as the hypothesis. That's what we're doing. We're not actually experimenting. We're talking about, what's that heading again, John? What's the heading of this called? I forget. Oh, yes. We're talking about a hypothesis.
You're self-refuting, John. You're self-refuting. You've now mixed up experiment and hypothesis and you don't realise it. You're a moron. And Nathan's even more of a moron because he gets all his information from you and just repeats it without understanding any of it. You
Rumpus,
don't
can I
understand
have some source material,
and an
please,
experiment.
for your specific version of
Okay,
allowing complex hypotheses
Okay, Arwen.
basically as causation
Okay,
experiments?
Arwen, just consider.
Can I have a source for that? where
Okay,
that,
Arwen, I'm just
where
gonna
that has
Maybe
been
I can phrase it.
established
Arwen, I'm trying to-
historically to
He
be
won't let
allowed
you talk, Arwen.
in the scientific method.
Okay,
Arwen, he won't let you
Please?
talk, so maybe I can
Citation?
just ask the question directly. So, Rumpus, does a complex hypothesis
No such thing.
give you a presumed cause?
There are 3 causes, for instance, in this
Not my
example.
question.
So
It's not my question. Shall I repeat my question? Didn't you understand it?
Well, it's singular. There are 3 causes.
Let
to
me
it,
ask
so
again.
It presumes there's only
Listen
a single
up,
cause. It's
bonehead.
not.
Listen up, bonehead. Does a complex hypothesis give you a presumed cause?
I'll put that's causes.
No, that's not what I asked, you stupid
I know,
idiot.
that's why it's
Don't change my words. Answer my question. Does a complex hypothesis give you a presumed cause?
That's an invalid definition of hypothesis because you don't have causes.
Oh, sorry. Invalid definition of hypothesis. Can you see what's on screen?
Yeah, but that's what John's written. He's an idiot. Why should I?
Oh, sorry. Let's just say it again because you talk when you should listen. Did you write
No,
this,
you
John?
should listen to me.
Try to listen, Rumpus. I know you're
I'm
stupid.
100%
I know you're stupid and you can't listen. I'll just ask John with you on mute because you can't shut up as well as not listen. So, Rumpus, try to pay attention. Did you write this, John?
I wrote this down.
There we go.
Wait a second. I'm not done yet. I wrote this.
Try to have some patience, Rumpus. Let's shut him up again. You're listening, conspiracy cats. When I'm dealing with assholes, I have to shut them up. Otherwise, they talk continually, thinking that they can censor reality. That's what Rumpus is doing. So I'll ask the question again. As Rumpus has asserted that John wrote this down. So, John, are these your words?
They are not my words. However, I did write them down. I wrote them down from this PDF. This is from Kristen McClellan from The Nature of Science and the Scientific Method, the Geological Society of America.
And what's it describing? I know there's a heading, but just because Rumpus is a bit slow.
This is defining what a scientific hypothesis is.
Ah, win.
Nathan, when you accelerate your car, what do you think the acceleration is dependent on?
Shut up,
a
you
definition.
absolute retard.
Yep.
You have said on 2 separate occasions on this very show that a hypothesis does not contain an independent variable. You are stupid.
You're a moron, Nathan. You don't understand there are multiple causes
failed
to
fifth grade
almost
general
everything.
science.
John, you're not stupid as Nathan. John, do you understand that when you accelerate in your car, there are several variables that determine how fast you accelerate? Not just one. There's the power of the car, the mass of the car, the grip, the tires, and everything. So there are multiple causes. Even the most simple examples, there are multiple variables, not just
There's
one.
multiple causes for pineapple upside down cakes. I understand that, but we're not there yet.
Nathan doesn't
We're
understand
at
this.
a hypothesis. You
Yes, and then
said
so
that
for you
there
to
are no
hypothesize-
Rumpus,
independent
try to have a
So,
two-way
John,
conversation,
John,
Rumpus.
if
Not
I
just
wanted
your
to
own voice.
hypothesize-
Rumpus, try to have a two-way conversation with somebody. I know
John-
stupid people struggle to have a discourse with people. That's you.
John, do you understand?
Shout out to Billy Wazzer for the chat. Thanks very much, Warren. I'll say it again, Rumpus. I know we're dealing with children, but try to have a two-way conversation.
Right, so John, do you understand if you were to accelerate in a car, there are multiple causes to how quickly you accelerate? So
Yes, that's an obfuscation. We're still trying to develop a hypothesis, and now we're trying to explain to a bonehead, that would be you, Rumpus, that a hypothesis does contain an independent variable, as defined here.
in an experiment, Nathan, where you are...
No. Not an experiment. A hypothesis will explain details about the experiment in the future, but we're not doing the
You're
experiment.
mixing up the hypothesis
We are
and the
first
experiment.
making a scientific prediction. That's called
And
a
that's what the
hypothesis.
hypothesis
Wait.
does. Multiple
Nathan,
variables.
Nathan.
Oh my God.
Why don't we let Rumpus explain how do we design a experiment? Like, what is the process?
Right. I would love to be able to, yes, I'd love to get a sentence out. So in the case, for instance, the Cavendish one is an excellent example of an experiment. We've got 3 variables. So in the experiment, although we've got 3 causes, 3 causes combined with the constant universal gravitation
Unbelievable.
constant. So we've got 3 variables and 1 constant. So in the experiment, you've got to say, now I just want to be able to vary one. I want to isolate it. So what you can then do is that I'm going to vary only one of the masses in my alternative hypothesis that we wrote out earlier. In my experiment, I'm going to keep everything else constant, a controlled variable, which John knows all about. Nathan doesn't understand it. And then you just vary one of them. So you just simplify things, and then you've got to have the other things present in the Cavendish experiment. You can't take away the other mass. You've got to keep them a certain distance apart. So you vary your independent variable, and then you get an effect on the dependent variable. But all the other variables, the controlled variables, are still participating. If they weren't there, nothing would happen. So your hypothesis has 3 variables, but in your experiment, you have 1 independent variable. There is a difference between the hypothesis and the experiment.
Excuse me, you said 3 variables in a hypothesis. I only see 2 here in this definition.
Well, if you
Hey John,
in the alternative
the
hypothesis,
Geological Society of America deals with pseudoscience. They actually support that man-made climate change, just so you know.
Yeah, I understand that, but the reference...
John, you said you understood there were 3
It's
variables.
not really a reliable
listen.
scientific source.
No, see, they can talk the talk, but they can't walk the walk. This
No,
is
I'm
correct.
presenting it right now. It's their
This is a
official
correct-
statement.
This is a correct
John, you said you
definition of
recognized
a
there were 3 variables
hypothesis.
in
I
my
have 30
alternative
other
hypothesis.
ones, so this is just one.
John, you
So,
said you recognized there were 3
do you
variables in my
understand,
alternative hypothesis.
Rumpus? You said a hypothesis does not contain an independent variable.
It has variables.
This definition says that it not only contains it, it's the damn most important thing of it.
That's an experiment, John, where you have control.
It says
See,
at the
we're
top
not
of
talking
the
about
page.
control
It says at the top of the
variables.
page. This is not detailing the experiment, Rumpus. It is
is.
detailing.
John has got them confused. John has
No.
got confused between the
John
experiment
hasn't
and
done
hypothesis.
this. This isn't John's definition. For the 3rd time, John. Can you tell him where this came from? For the 3rd time, because he's that dumb and deaf and stupid.
Yes, it's Kristen McClellan, The Nature of Science and the Scientific Method from the Geological Society of America.
But John, do you recognise in my hypothesis I've got 3 variables? Do you understand that?
Yes, we recognise
This-
implicitly
yeah.
that your hypothesis is not scientific. It does not establish an independent variable. It does not have a presumed cause of the effect. It has 3.
There are 3 causes,
Yeah,
Nathan.
this is
there are 3
done.
causes.
So,
Yeah.
So, John, do you recognise there are 3 variables in that alternative hypothesis that we wrote out?
hey,
Do you recognise there are 3 variables in that alternative hypothesis that we wrote out earlier?
yes, which makes it
Great.
void.
So then the question is, how do you do an experiment? Because you only want
Which
to vary
makes
one.
it
You want to
void.
Yeah, you're an idiot, Rumpus. You don't understand what science is. I mean, it is pretty sad. This is what you learn in high school. Why didn't you pay attention in high school to what the scientific method was and what an independent variable was? Where is the step that took you from them explaining that an independent variable was the sole cause to you thinking that you can have 3?
There's never a sole cause, Nathan. There are 3
Got the wrong
causes.
type
in the
of
alternative
hypothesis,
No,
Rumpus.
Arwen, consider
You're
the car
overgeneralizing
Arwen,
hypotheses.
consider the
A
car
specific
accelerating
type of
case.
hypothesis
No, you're a moron now, Arwen.
to
You're a
establish
moron.
a cause
Arwen,
to
now,
things
almost always
cannot
more than
be
one cause.
complex.
You're a moron. You're a moron. If you
No,
don't think there's more
Oh,
than
you
3
geez,
causes.
see, this
You're
is where
being
it devolves
technically
to.
very incorrect.
No, I'm absolutely A1
No,
on
you
the
are
money
being
here.
very incorrect. You're
Don't understand. Oh, God, you need
Okay,
no,
education.
I
no
am
problem.
understanding.
You need
A
education.
complex
Maybe,
hypothesis
Rumpus,
cannot
this is-
establish a cause to things.
There are
Can you give
3...
us a... Hold on, Rumpus. Can you give us a citation that says that a scientific hypothesis will contain 3 variables? Can you give us a
No, I
citation?
didn't say-
for that?
I
No,
said
3
particular
independent
hypothesis.
variables.
3 independent variables. That's right. Can you give us a citation?
I
We've
know
got
I never
one.
mentioned the hypothesis having independent variables. I'm saying they don't have independent variables.
Well,
I'm
can
saying
you
it
give us
has
a
variables.
citation to back that up?
Right, in this particular case, in the one I'm proposing with this formula, the F is equal
Not
to G...
what you're proposing. A citation to back up your assertion that in a scientific experiment or a hypothesis you can have 3.
Ah, you see, you got it
Let
wrong
me
there, didn't you,
finish.
Nathan?
Let me
In
finish. Let me
experiments,
finish,
you have one
Dumbo, that
independent
can't
variable.
listen. Dumbo. Let me finish
in
my
experiments,
sentence.
you have one independent variable,
Dumbo,
and the others are
hello,
controlled
Dumbo.
variables.
Try and listen to the question.
No, you got it
Find
wrong,
a
didn't you,
site.
Nathan?
Let
You
me
mixed up
have a
hypothesis and
site.
experiment again.
Yeah, Rumpus, try to listen. Give me a citation that demonstrates that you can have 3 independent variables in a scientific experiment. Please.
You can't, because you mixed up experiment and hypothesis again, haven't you?
Show,
The hypothesis
so
you've got
show
variables,
us
but in the
a
experiment-
citation that
Hold
has
on, let
3
me get my sentence
independent
out, for God's sake.
variables in a
No, no.
hypothesis then.
Second.
Yeah.
Just give me 5 seconds. In an experiment...
Don't tell us about the experiment. You've just said I've got confused about that. I concede. My bad. I am wrong. I meant to say, show me where you can have 3 independent variables in a hypothesis.
You don't. You don't. They're not independent, but they're just variables. They're three variables in the hypothesis. And
Oh, my bad. Why do they call them independent variables and make such a lot of fuss about defining what the IV and DV do in all of these explanations about what science is, Rumpus?
In the experiment, we have two controlled variables in the Cavendish experiment and one independent variable.
No, that's in the Cavendish
Yeah,
experiment.
he said. Oh, wait a second. He said he had an independent variable here.
In
Okay,
the
what is it?
in the experiment, but in the
The
hypothesis,
experiment is a hypothesis test. You
No,
get
do you
the
see what he's
experiment
doing?
from
Rumpus
the
is
I'm telling you how it is, moron.
No, you're trying to make the two things mutually exclusive, and you're an idiot.
They're not exclusive, but you've got to
You're
understand.
trying to make them as. You're trying to totally disconnect the hypothesis from the experiment mode.
Eric, do you understand in my hypothesis?
No, I do not understand. I do not understand. I do not stand under your BS.
Okay, I'll make a very simple statement.
I do not stand under your BS.
Do you understand in my hypothesis I've got three variables?
In your hypothesis,
No.
it's not scientific. You're just
Right.
an idiot pretender clown who asserts shite and makes out that that's real without any affirmation of it, without any citation to back it, without it actually conforming to the actual definitions of these things. An
Eric,
independent variable is one thing, your presumed cause in the hypothesis. When we ask you to give it or define it, you say it's almost always more than one, even though every definition you will ever find of a scientific hypothesis, a scientific prediction, will explain that you have an singular, one, independent variable.
In an experiment, yes.
No, in a hypothesis, a scientific prediction, the thing that you will establish prior to your experiment. It will define what happens in the experiment. It will define what you presume is the cause, the independent variable. That will all be established in the hypothesis, your scientific prediction.
Which has three variables.
No! It has an independent variable, the presumed cause of the effect. Not three. You're just a retard. You haven't brought up any citation. You've just asserted it.
In a hypothesis, I've got...
Yeah, you're just asserting it again. You're not citing anything.
Fallacy.
You're not proving anything. You're just asserting it like we should somehow believe that somebody who doesn't ever shut their mouth for more than 10 seconds is suddenly the authority on what science is. You're not. You're a bonehead.
Okay, Nathan, I can prove it to example by if you just give me 5 seconds. I mentioned the other case. Let's forget about Cavendish for a moment. If I wanted you to tell me, I wanted a scientific hypothesis how fast your car would accelerate.
That's not established cause and effect with an observed phenomena. You're talking about a man-made device, you complete idiot. That's
So
a
you
car.
want to say to me, I know. Oh, well, okay. If you don't like the idea of a car, we can think of some other system like the.
So you can't give it me in 5 seconds. You can just obfuscate a little bit while you try and redefine what science is. You're a bonehead.
Yep. We've been here for 30 minutes trying to get what independent variable is from this alternative train wreck hypothesis, right? 30 minutes.
Yeah, maybe we'll ask again. Rumpus, we've got the... Why do I even bother? We've got the hypothesis on screen. Let's see if you can actually give us, without rumpusing the Hangout continually, why am I even bothering? Shall I just say it like it is?
I'm trying to give you a proof here that you will understand.
Can't censor reality, Rumpus. I'm trying to get a sentence out.
Nathan, I'm trying to give you an answer that you'll
Yeah, I'm trying to explain that we've had this on for about half an hour and you haven't given us an independent variable. So, are you going to continually censor the reality or censor the Hangout from hearing this? Because you're not going to. Science is what we're talking about. What you're talking about isn't science. Now,
suddenly become clear to you, Nathan, if you like.
Yeah.
Everything
I
will
don't
become
mind
clear to you.
I don't
if you let
mind
me
you
make this
using him in the
explanation.
Hangout because all he's doing is stopping the people in the Hangout.
No,
from
I'm
hearing.
trying to give you a very simple explanation, Nathan. We'll prove my point.
We want the independent variable in this alternative hypothesis right now.
Okay, I'll do that. Give me 10 seconds, John. I'll come back to
Right
you. Nathan,
now.
No, I'll do it in 10 seconds. John, Nathan,
We're not
if
listening
you were
to
to,
you. You're a
I would
clown.
do it in 10
You're
seconds,
a
John.
full-on wiki parroting pretender
seconds.
clown, sir.
John, I'll
And
do
you
it in 10
just
seconds.
embarrassed yourself in
John,
front
I'll
of
do it in
how
10
many people?
seconds.
300,
If you keep on doing that,
200?
I'm going to come over and kick
You're
you.
a clown. Done with you.
Right, I'm trying to give a 10-second explanation to Nathan so he understands why there are multiple. Oh Jesus! I mean, I know you want to censor me, guys, but it's not. You can't censor reality. if you wanted to know, for instance, how much something's going to crush, so it's in the real world, you go and stand on something. To know how much, to have a hypothesis how much something would crush and compress, you would need to know A, how strong the thing was, and B, how much force was applied. So you've immediately got two variables there in your hypothesis. So you should be able to say, even the most simple case, you've got multiple variables in your hypothesis. But in an experiment, what you would do is you would just have one variable, an independent variable, to just you keep the same
So
thing.
you've had
and you
far
change
more
them.
than 10 seconds. That was just an endless rant about nonsense. If you want to establish a cause and effect relationship with you crushing a can, what do you think caused that? There's no observed phenomena in crushing a can. You are
There is.
crushing a can.
It's crushed, you idiot.
Listen, idiot.
I'm
Science
trying to
deals
answer
with
John now.
naturally occurring phenomena. That's why the top thing, number one, is natural
Yeah, it
phenomena.
can be physical. That's an idiotic argument, Nathan. I'm amazed you make that argument. It's idiotic. Anyway, I'm trying to answer John here. The independent.
What
So when you
is
get around to
the
your
independent
experiment,
variable?
okay, John.
Here.
I'm trying to answer you. So now we've moved on to the what you do in the
Give
experiment.
me the independent variable, you
Yeah, I'm
Adderall
just doing
drip
it. I'm trying to do
clown.
it, moron. I'm trying to do it, but you're interrupting me. Right. So now you've got the alternative hypothesis. Then you've got to
Give me the
design
independent variable before I
Let
come
me
through this
finish, John.
computer
I'll
and
give
rip
you
it
your
out of you.
answer. Right. So we've got a hypothesis sorted out. So then we need to design an experiment in which we test the hypothesis. And what we'll do is we'll pick on.
We don't have an independent
We'll
variable
make
yet.
two
Give
of
it
the
to me.
variables. We'll make two of the variables controlled
Give it to
variables.
me.
We'll make two of the variables controlled variables in this experiment, and we'll have one independent variable. So the independent variable we pick on will be one of the masses. So, John, you can write down in the experiment phase, we pick on one mass as our independent variable. So there you go. But that's an
What's the
experiment, not
independent?
a
Wait a
hypothesis.
second. What's the independent variable?
In the experiment, but not in the hypothesis. You've got this in the wrong place. But we'll have one of the masses because we can pick one of three. We can pick one of our three variables. We'll make two controlled variables, and we'll make the other one the independent variable. When that independent
What is it?
variable will be the mass.
So mass.
Yes,
After
one of the masses.
35
One of the masses.
minutes, we get
And two other
the
controlled variables.
independent variable, right?
And two other
Mass.
controlled variables.
So
Two other controlled
mass
variables.
causes mass attracts mass, right?
And we've got two
That's
other
what
controlled
this
variables
is.
in there.
So let's just put
So-
this in here, right? Mass causes mass attracts mass. I mean, you have got to be. I mean, this isn't even stupid. This is full-on hospice slobber nurse territory. Mass causes mass attracts mass. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Awesome. Awesome. Right, I think with that, I'll probably round the show out. Anything you want to add, John? I'll take that as a no. With that, I'll say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. And of course, a massive thank you to all of the live panel for making this debate possible. If you hated the show, then you know exactly what to do. But if you liked it, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you've not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!